I'm Rod Duff, your host.
And I'm producer Barbie.
And together,
we bring you our podcast,
Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. I got to figure a smoother transition there because I know when it's coming, but it just stops all of a sudden. And that initial look, we got to see if we can fade that in. And then I'm not such an ugly shock to you guys. It happened again. There it is. We had 9 people. And yesterday it didn't happen, but 2 previous days before that it did. And all of a sudden, as soon as I start talking, it drops down to we're at 3 now. But watch, when Aaron starts talking, it's going to start going up again. I guarantee you. Well, I can't guarantee you, but I hope so. Damn, I hope so. So thank you all for being here. I'm Rod Duff, your host, and you saw producer Barbie there a little bit. She moved out to California because of her first grandbaby. Actually, the second one's already on the way. So congrats to her. She'll probably be on here. We do sessions, review sessions every day after every show. Well, look, damn it, dude. Hey, Aaron, I hope I didn't screw this up for you, man. We're down to 0 watchers. I'm going to have to get off of here so that at least some people will show up and, they're tired of hearing me. I get it. I get it. So I'm going to bring on Aaron. He's got an amazing, when we were back chatting in the green room, he unloaded some stuff. Usually I try and scrub as much information, AI stuff you can do now that you couldn't do before on a guest to be able to fill in. But he and I were just talking back there. And the reason I am excited about him coming aboard and visiting with us. Oh, good. We're starting to come back. I'm mentioning your name, Aaron. That's what I think is happening. I think they're saying, okay, Aaron's going to talk pretty soon. But anyway, he has a great mission in that this will be his second bike ride across America, raising awareness, funds, the whole thing about people who have gotten caught up in the Ponzi schemes. And I know every one of you guys know all about that. So there's more. He preached for, I think he said 10 years, right, Aaron? I think so. And so I'm going to hop off. Oh, hey, very good. As soon as I said hop off, they shot up. You guys. Anyway, Aaron, I want to welcome you aboard. How you doing, brother?
Come on, man. I'm doing good. I'm kind of not looking forward to this afternoon's cardio session. I have to be so intentional because that's what I was telling you before is the last 6 weeks going to the bike ride. It's because during our tax season, so basically from January 1st to April 15th, we go 100 miles an hour, and so
let's stop on that for a second.
Yeah,
let's stop right there for just a second. So yes, absolutely, tax season is 15, 20 hours a day, because it's that everybody rushing to get it done. And you have multiple offices across multiple states. So you got to fit all that together in with too.
Yes.
Go on, I'm sorry.
And then we finish the tax season, and then think of that like regular season, and then think like May 1 until like December 31st would be like off season. And that's when you implement all of your changes and initiatives.
Yeah.
So right now we're launching a couple huge initiatives that have to be done before I leave May 26th. And then don't forget that then we go into the bike ride itself, which is 2-part. There's the charity piece of it. And so we completely relaunched a brand new website this year and did the whole thing. Yeah, the whole thing. It's ponzirelief.org. And, and so it's the whole thing this year is there's a very specific IRS form 4684. And this form is set up and designed where at the end of this year, right now, 2019 and 2020, the laws changed and modified it for the Tax Uncertainty Disaster Relief Act. And they modified it for COVID where you can write off basically losses from federal disasters, which is awesome. That expires at the end of this year. But they slipped something in there that nobody knew about. And it's called Section C, which is the ability to write off losses from financial disasters, Ponzi schemes. That's never been in there before, and it closes the end of this year. And what that means is, to give you a perfect example of we've done their taxes. This client, we did their taxes. The client is a 7-figure net worth client, and they had between 2 investments about $500,000. Specifically, a great question, Tobias. The purpose is specifically to give awareness to Form 4684 that we've got to save this. Sign the petition. My goal this year is to get 50,000 signatures to sign the petition. And you'll see on ponzirelief.org, you'll see some pictures of me, and you'll see the big picture of me at the Capitol steps. But I've got a letter to President Trump right on the front of the website.
Oh, wow. Did he answer?
Save Form 4684. And so we'll see, because the goal is by the end of this year, it stays in place, because this form is saving so many people. When I say this, I have to tread very lightly and put a little disclaimer here, because 2 things can be true at the same time. One, what happened to these individuals and the advisors, because there's as much of the victim as the individual. They're just as in the dark, and their lives are ruined, careers are ruined. They lose their name, reputation. It's just as horrible what happens to them career-wise as it does the actual financial victims, but just differently. These individuals, the crazy thing is that what's going to happen is these families, like this client that I did their taxes, had lost about $500,000 in between 2 Ponzi's. Because of Form 4684, we actually have the write-off, where we can write off 95% of that. Okay, so now we're able to actually go in, and we can now, so for this client who lost $500,000, we're now able to go in and save that individual and write off 95% of it. So now they can actually, yes. So this individual went from owing about $3,000 in taxes, because they had about a couple $100,000 in income, to, whenever we applied the $450,000 income credit, right, they got an immediate refund of everything they paid in, all $200,000 of the income, and they got a $250,000 credit into the next year. So here's what I'm saying: both things can be true. One, what happened to these individuals is the worst crime I've ever seen. You cannot see these people and have a soul and it not change you. Okay, that's number one. But the second thing that it helps, like these lives get changed, but also at the same time, something beautiful can come after the hurricane. So it's true the hurricane happened, but there's also a rainbow that came after the hurricane. This is a rainbow. Okay, so the hurricane has happened. We wish every single one of these individuals to have every penny back, but if they can't, how about if we can at least write off 95% of that off the taxes and get some type of income credit? And it's really, really helping a lot of individuals. So that's,
I want to dive into this a little bit. Go ahead, but I want to dive into
Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Okay, okay. I didn't mean to. Well, I did mean to interrupt, but the form that you're talking about, or the tax credit that you're talking about, that sunsetting, I think is the word.
Yes.
This year, I understand you have some. I'm not a financial person. Remember, I told you back there, if I get it, all these people are going to get it, right? So at the end of the day, can you be a little more? You are the expert. You know the conversation. You know it by heart. I don't, and I'm sure at least 2 people, maybe nobody, but at least a few, don't know that lingo as well. What are you bringing awareness to? You wrote a letter to Trump to save that bill, but that bill is keeping that door open for what you just said a minute ago about the tax write-off.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it was really, and honestly, to your point, with what we do is I do complex planning. So I have years ago, I got a very specific certification called an RICP. It's a Retirement Income Certified Professional. So I've been doing this for like 25 years. My grandmother was a career retirement planner with New York Life. So my grandparents are my heroes. And so it was just kind of a natural thing for me. And so, and I don't handle investments. I just build the plans for our business owners and the retirees. And so, but I work closely with advisors, and a couple of great friends of mine had a contract with a broker dealer, and that broker dealer had a contract with a company that got investigated by the SEC, was deemed a Ponzi, and then I just watched the devastation with everybody, and then I watched The worst part about this is this gentleman, and honestly, I don't mind because you'll see every one of my press releases when I stop in my cities. I bring a lot of attention to Star Grower asset Ponzi scheme and the gentleman that started it, because
Star Grower? What's
yeah,
Star Grower?
Star Grower Asset Management is the actual Ponzi. Every year I do this, I
That was
sponsor a
their
Ponzi. Yeah, and they're based out of Indiana, Indianapolis specifically, and so I
Hold
so the
on,
last
I'm
2
confused.
years,
I'm
everything.
confused. I'm
Yeah,
confused. I'm
go ahead.
confused. So every year you sponsor a Ponzi.
Yeah.
You mean you expose a Ponzi? Is that what you're?
Mhm.
You're
Yeah.
not sponsoring them. You're
No.
bringing them in the spotlight.
Attention. So
Okay,
when I do my
right.
ride, and you'll
Gotcha.
see on the website that the last 2 years, I've been sponsoring the Star Grower, and you'll see I'll have a shirt that says "Pedaling For," and I have a piece of tape
Seen
underneath
that.
it, and I'll have the person's first name, like the husband and wife. I don't put a last name, and how much they lost. And I'll tell you something. This is the most amazing thing with this. Okay, is I intentionally go out of the way because the most direct path is straight to DC, going right through Arkansas and all that. Except
Absolutely.
if you know anything about geography, that goes right through the Ozarks, and I already have to go through the Appalachian Mountains. So I don't want to do two sets, okay? And so
Yeah.
so it's funny because I intentionally, and not only that, my mentor that helped and kind of coached me through the whole time, and that's a story and how I was supernaturally how we were basically interacted and introduced to each other. But she basically said, "Look, you've got to get on either L.A., Chicago, or the New York market to really get a press." And I said, "Okay, well, I don't want to have to go to the Ozarks anyway. So how about I just go around and we go like Oklahoma
You go
City,
south.
Kansas City, and then we cut across Central Missouri on 70, and then we pick up." And the funny thing, and then I go to Chicago. And so I go about, I don't know, 800 miles out of the way to Chicago to pick up. And the Chicago Sun-Times last year did a huge spread on me. Last year, I rode the
That's
freeway
where
all the
we
way up.
are. That's
Yeah.
where we are. You're
Oh, no
gonna
way.
win.
I'll
You're gonna.
I'll
We'll
see
have
you
to.
guys here in about a month and a half. Okay, so
That's what I was gonna say. Let's stay in touch
we will, because I'll
because
literally come in and
there's
you'll
something
see.
we can do there too.
Oh, the Chicago Sun-Times, and you'll see their whole thing that they did on me, and you'll see because last year I rode the freeway the whole way. So you'll see Chicago, and the reporters literally would ride ahead of me about
Okay, I
10
get
years
that.
and wait for me to catch up, and they would be snapping photos of me riding the shoulder on the freeway next to all these 18-wheelers and Amazon trucks and stuff. And so, but it was really cool. And but the thing is, once you hit Central Missouri and start going east, I'll start picking up some, and that's the first sort of mountains you run into until you go through Ohio, and then you pick up Pennsylvania, and then once you hit the Appalachians, and I'm bringing that up because I never got tired, exhausted, like doing the ride, but I got places where my legs were on fire, and I was like, I don't know if I can do one more. And the thing was with the Appalachians, because again, there's no e-assist here. This is only quad power, and so
Yeah.
once I get those, and I'm like, I don't know if I can go again. And this is literally all I have to do is look down, and I see this husband and wife, and I pat them, and it's like
Mm.
something happens where the pain that they've gone through, it's like I don't know, my Holy Spirit basically says, look, you got this. If they can go through that, you can go through this. And it's like they give me that motivation to continue the ride and to keep pushing forward, even though I don't know how. I mean, my bike broke 5 times last year. I mean,
On that ride, on
yeah,
what on the
yeah,
the ride? Yeah.
yeah.
So you have a team following behind you,
No,
like
no.
the.
It's me and my wife. That's it.
Oh, okay.
And we
So
did it
you
out,
and your
we did
wife
it out the
had
back
the
of the Prius.
fixed. Really?
Yes, yes. We bootstrap. No,
That's a
I'm not
good.
kidding. How and I'll
I
tell you.
know. I
I'll tell
believe.
you how this story came to be, okay? Because this is how crap works. And we were talking in the green room. I swam my very first mile when I was 8 years old. I've kind of been
Right.
a mild psychopath for most of my life, where my limit meter's always been broken. And so I'm just like, well, why can't we do that? And I'm like, well, now it's an adventure, and now I got to see if I can do it. And so how this thing all came to be was, this is like probably 3 years ago. One of my close friends, RJ, we were hanging out, and so we were chatting, and he was telling me about this annual motorcycle rally where tens of thousands of guys all ride their motorcycles
DC.
into DC. Yes, on Memorial Day. Okay.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
and every few years
Been
he
there.
goes.
I was a Harley rider.
No way.
Before I had an accident, broke every bone
No
on this
way.
side of my body.
That's
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
RJ kind of was the same thing. He's got a Gold Wing. I think he's more of a Honda guy, but he was always the
I had a Gold Wing. Those are
he loves
cool.
them, you know,
Yeah.
and they're terrific.
Yeah.
And so he and a bunch of like, I don't know, like a couple hundred guys, they all meet up in a certain spot in DFW, and then they ride to DC
Right.
together. And as he's telling me about this, all of a sudden my spirit says, what if you ride your bike to DC? As he's talking, I hear this crap. Okay. Like if you ever listen to like Benny Blanco, the music producer, when they get these inspirations of beats, they're like on a treadmill or something. And it's like, what, and that happens to me all the time. And so whenever I get these crazy ideas, I just have to, I'm so used to zoning them out. It's part of ADD. You can literally have two brains working like lizard brains at the same time. And so I was literally able to go and I was like, and all of a sudden, by the way, I tell nobody this. The very next week, watch this. The next week, mind you, whenever I get these crazy ideas, I get the vision first, but I have to wait for the provision, how I'm supposed to do it. That is never at the same time. That could be years later, years. Okay. And then I'm stuck, like I said, like the dirty apostle Paul with this freaking thorn on my spine, you know, and I'm like, and it's a burden. I can't get rid of it. I have to do something about this. And then the next week, I'm on the phone with Lauren, my executive coach. And I say, Lauren, I got a crazy idea. I think I'm supposed to. And Lauren, literally, just imagine like my life is like a giant pile of clothes, and I'm constantly like sorting clothes, but I'm always throwing new clothes on top. And so I will bring in Lauren, like when my pile is too big, my brain says, I don't even know what to do with this. Then she'll come in and I'm like, okay, what do we need to do with this? And she helps me sort my clothes. Okay. Not physical, but just literal clothes with all the crap I have to do. And so we're on the phone and I said, I've got this crazy idea and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it, but I feel like I'm supposed to ride my bicycle from Dallas to DC for these Ponzi victims to raise a lot of awareness and fundraising for these amazing families. And I swear on my life, it was just like this. Lauren says, and by the way, this is how it always works for me when the provision comes later, because I always know, because it always starts with, well, you know, that's how she starts it. And when I hear, well, you know, I'm like, okay, what are you going to do now? Just drop another miracle of provision on me. Like God's just amazing, bro. When you understand how he works his miracles, you realize every day is an adventure and he's constantly doing miracles for us, constantly. We're just idiots 100%. And we don't see it. Okay. So Lauren says, you know, I got a good friend of mine, Tracy, and she did something very similar a few years ago where she rode her bike from California to New York, and she did it to raise a lot of fundraising and awareness for diabetes. And she got on the Dr. Oz show. If you want, I can connect you. Huh? What? Wow. And then, you know, us being based in Dallas-Fort Worth. And I said, where does she live? Now, mind you, understand, there's maybe a dozen people on the planet that have done something like this on a bike for a certain reason, a certain cause. Okay. And she says, oh, she lives here in Fort Worth. What? And then, okay. So I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, I'll connect you. So the next week I talked to Tracy, and Tracy's like, I'll be your coach. So literally every month, all the way until the bike ride, her and her husband, because she did it very similar. She did the ride between the bridges. And Tracy, type 1 diabetic, was born with it, was not supposed to live past age 20. And so she basically, every 10 years past that, from 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, she does an annual cross-country event. And the last one that she did was between the bridges, the Golden Gate Bridge and the Brooklyn Bridge. And so it took her about 3 months to do it. Cool. And so, and she's the one that told me it was her PR in Chicago that got the Dr. Oz show in New York picked up. That's why she's like, Chicago's a big market for you if you can do it. That's why I pedaled out of my way to Chicago, hoping and praying. And thank you, Chicago Sun-Times, because they saw it. Those gals that were the photographer and the journal, both those journalists were absolutely amazing ladies. And I'm so eternally grateful for both of them. But that's literally, I'm talking to Tracy, and this is exactly the first question I ask. Okay. Because I am panicked. Mind you, I've done lots and lots of 100+ bike rides, mile bike rides. Okay. Right. And I know couch to bike ride takes me 5 months to train for one day of like 100-ish miles. Okay. Now, now I'm like panicked because I don't know, something after when I got to age 40, I like have panic attacks all the time now. Okay. And so I'm like panicking because I'm like, I feel like I can sort of handle everything else, but the training is petrifying me. Okay. Oh, man, so I talked to Tracy, my very first conversation, and I said, Trace, I am so scared about this training. What do I need to be doing? And this was basically kind of a year out, maybe like about 10 or 11 months before the event. And she goes,
the first one?
Yes, this is last year's event. Okay. And
Right.
she says, what training? And I said, okay, clearly, where's Ashton? Because I'm being punked because nobody goes across the country and says, what training? And this is what
Yeah.
Tracy said. She goes, first of all, I'm type 1 diabetic, so I have to exercise every day to stay alive. And she said, let me ask you something. And when I tell you this, if I already know, because it changed my life, this reframe could change a lot of people's lives. Okay. So she comes and she says, let me ask you something. When you were 12 years old, and your parents kicked you out of the house and told you to go play all day long, she said, how much training did you need to ride your bike all day Saturday? And I said, well, no.
True.
And she goes, exactly. She goes, this is not a race. She goes, this is just a Saturday morning bike ride. And she said, every day when you look up, and I swear to you, it works every time. And not just that, I'm getting my pilot's license. And so my check ride's in a few weeks before I leave. And so how many times I've come in on a gnarly crosswind and I'm like, oh my God. And I can feel the panic, like the mild, like heart palpitations. And all of a sudden it's Tracy. What? You've done this 1,000 times. It's just a Saturday morning bike ride, man. Calm down, calm down. And I'm telling you, bro, every time I get in those situations where I feel the pulse increase a smidge and I know what's coming, and I just say that reframe and I feel like I can do anything, and it instantly puts me in a state of perfect calm and peace. And she was exactly right. And so, once I get to through the first 2 states, then you're like, okay, we're making progress. But the first week or 2, it's very overwhelming because you know what's ahead of you. And she said, just every day, she said, you just get, you look yourself in the mirror and remind yourself, today's just a Saturday morning bike ride. And she said, now, don't forget, you're not biking every day. And she said, like for me, she goes, have you calculated how long it's going to take you? And I said, yeah, like if I don't stop every day, it'll take me 3 weeks. And she said, okay, well, but understand, your bike is going to break. And we were talking in the green room. It broke 5 times last year. Okay. 5 times, separate times where my bike had to be in a bike shop overnight. Okay. But the miracles of provision that happened just with that alone will make anybody a believer. That alone. Okay. And I've got 1,000 of these stories. Okay. But then she goes, but also you're going to have bad weather. And last year, early part of April, there was that big tornado thing that went through, and we were stuck in Oklahoma City for like 3 days waiting for this tornado cell to burn through there. And she said, you're going to have bad weather. And she said, oh, and don't forget, there's going to be multiple times where you're in, like we're talking about with Chicago, where you hang out in a city for 2 or 3 days doing PR, and because that's why we're doing it. Hello.
Yes.
And so she said, so however long you think it's going to take you, double it. And I was like, okay, if it takes me 3 weeks, double it to 6 weeks. And I knew last year, and it makes me so flippity flip mad, okay, because my whole goal for last year was I had to reverse engineer because I wanted to pull into DC on Memorial Day, and I wanted to see 10,000 motorcyclists, period. The whole year, all I cared about was this one thing, okay? And listen to what the freak happened to me, okay? So I timed this thing and I reverse engineer. And so we leave the Monday after tax day last year, April 22nd, which happened to be Earth Day. So it was a great day to leave. And we literally pull into DC on Memorial Day. I pull in and I'm like crying. Like I'm just having like this time, like this okay, trust me. That entire day of going straight down, because DC has the greatest bike pass on planet Earth. So I literally took that last path in like 30 miles into the Capitol, and it dumped me right at like the needle, like the monument. And then I was like 2 miles from the Capitol, and the entire day I was bawling, because when you have something in your mind that you have that's such a strong vision for in this picture, something magical happens when your mental picture aligns with your real picture. And if your operating system is kindness and gratitude, you can't help but be overwhelmed, and you can't contain yourself. And so it was a lot of that. This year, I told you that before. We bootstrapped it last year at the back of the Prius, and it was, and people were like, "Oh, what's your team?" There was no team. It was me and my wife.
That's what I said.
It was like
That's what I said.
Nothing. But that was Tracy and her husband Fred. It was just those two. And the funny thing is people are like, oh my God, how do you bike it? Okay, first of all, I know this sounds weird. The easy part is the biking. Okay, and when I say that, it's because it takes me 8 months to train for this. So like you look at my calendar today at 3:00 is when I get on the treadmill, and I'll be on a really, really, the weird thing is almost none of the training is actually done on a bike. most of my conditioning is done on a really steep incline treadmill.
Why
Uh,
that? I mean,
because
there's got to be science or something behind it, right?
well, it
Or something.
it allows me, because on a normal bike, if you just go on a normal bike and you just go, okay, half the time you're not pedaling because you're coasting, and then half the time you're going downhill, and so you're actually
Oh,
not in exerting a lot of energy by biking. Okay, so but and you also understand, and you can't tell now, but up till 5 years ago when I had my heart scans done, and by the way, my doctor last year told me the bike ride saved my life, and I'll tell you that story in 2 seconds. Okay, and so I up until 5 years ago, I was a bodybuilder and powerlifter. So just imagine me, like you can sort of see that this is a large, and this is me not touching weights. If I touch weights, I'm a 2XL guy, and so I've always been like that. And so
yeah.
when everything that happened with this basically 5 years ago, when I had my second heart scan done, and the doctor was like, "Hey, you've got blockage," and I said, "Okay," and he goes, "You just need to do some cardio." And I said, "Okay." And at that moment, I was huge, like 220, 240s where I held out, still with my 34-inch waist. You look today, are you kidding? Like my stomach looks like the inside of a hospital vending machine. I swear to you. Okay. I eat crap all day and all. Okay. So like last night, for sure, I had an ice cream sandwich for dinner, and I think I had chips. Like that was, my wife's out of town. So when she's out, I'm like, what's in the freezer? Okay. What can I grab? Pop Tarts, like anything I can see that I can snack on. Okay. And so like, I'm like a 4-year-old, box M&Ms or, macaroni, rip it off, eat the shells. That's just me. Okay. But the crazy thing is specifically with this bike ride, what ended up happening was, I grew up because of my severe asthma. I almost died numerous times as a kid. Okay, my asthma was so severe. I was actually prednisone dependent, meaning I took it 365 days a year for like 10 years. Okay, and so I ended up. When I was in high school as a competitive swimmer, it was the only sport that I could do that didn't instantly give me a immediate asthma attack. Okay, like I could swim for hours, get out of the pool, jog to get my towel, asthma attack. I'm not kidding. Okay. And so now I figured that out why later. I know why, but this time it was like I just did it. So I was a competitive swimmer my whole life. I get to high school. One of my close friends, Kevin, he was just a year ahead of me, also on swim team with me. And a couple years out of high school, this dude gets like freaking leukemia. Okay. And I'm like, oh man, that sucks. And he has chemo, and he goes in remission for a few years, and then it comes back with a vengeance. And then he has to have a bone marrow from his brother. And then it goes in remission for a few years. And a few years later, this dude has a freaking heart attack. And by he's like age 30. Okay. Like this is literally 15 years ago.
Damn.
And I'm almost 50. So this is like he's around 32-ish when he has his heart attack. Okay. And so, and the doctors tell him it's because of all the prednisone that he had because of his cancer treatments. Okay. Now, mind you, I was prednisone dependent, and twice a year, the spring and fall, I was on dangerous high adult doses of prednisone to keep me out of the hospital. That not in 1,000 years what they did to me would they ever do to a kid today, because as a kid, it's torture. I was a school bully twice a year. I beat the crap. I would have blackouts because prednisone makes you insanely aggressive, and I could not stop eating. I literally looked like Veruca Salt from like Willy Wonka, and I started becoming an Oompa Loompa, and I was like, and when kids made fun of me, I would black out, and I would literally snap. And so I got it suspended, expelled, and and my parents did the best they could, and they thought I had a behavior problem. What they didn't know was I actually had a medical problem. We now know that today. And so, but fast forward, and so Kevin basically goes into remission, has his cancer, has a heart attack. I'm panicked because I took prednisone for 10 years. And so there's in Dallas Fort Worth, there's a 3D heart scan place, and they do like baby sonograms of your heart like that. And so I went in, and he goes, "Oh, you're fine." He goes, "This is 15 years ago, my very first scan, 15 years ago." And he said, "You're great. I don't need to see you for 5 to 10 years." So I saw him 10 years later, which is 5 years ago. Okay. And he goes, "Good news, bad news." And I said, "Okay, bad news." And he goes, "You have blockage this time, 25% blockage." And he said, "Now."
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. And he goes, but it's not in the bad arteries. And he said, also, the other good thing, it hasn't calcified. So he's like, take these like list of like homeopathics, like fish oil, vitamin D, curcumin, blah, blah. Okay. He said, but if you do one thing, when I see you in a few years, that'll be gone. He goes, all I want you to do is start doing cardio 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day. And he goes, when I see you in a few years, it'll bust it out. And I was like, okay, cool. But I knew because I worked out. And so I realized at that moment, wait a minute, okay, I spent the first half of my life focusing on like these muscles. I probably should like spend the next half focusing on like these muscles. And so, and I knew I didn't have enough time to do both. So from that moment forward, I shifted to purely cardio slash plyometrics, meaning I'm very obsessive with push-ups. So like my last 2-hour treadmill session, I did 400 push-ups. That is, and so you can tell like I'm a thick dude, but I've done push-ups since I was in middle school. So I do things like that, but I will not touch weights, and I haven't. And check this out. So I go. It was 3 months after last year's bike ride, and I go to the doctor. Okay, and the doctor's like, "Hell, how you been?" Now, mind you, he's looking at like a really big screen. Okay, I can't see what he's seeing, but he sees my heart from 4 years ago because this is last year, so it would have been 4 years before, and then my heart that I just had scanned. Okay, and they're side by side. And he goes, "So what have you been up to?" And I was like, "I don't know. I did exactly what you told me. I started taking these pills and stuff, and I started doing my cardio." He goes, "Yeah, but anything else?" And I was like, oh, yeah. I just finished up this cross country bike ride. So it took me like 10 months to train for it, you know. And I said, rode my bike like 2,000 miles from Dallas to DC for charity to help some people out. And he goes, "That's what I thought." And he does this. He like spins the monitor, okay. And now, and I'm looking at 2 hearts, okay. And he goes, "This was your heart from 4 years ago. Normal heart." He goes, "Matter of fact, the blockage you had is still less than most of the guys your age, okay." And he said, "But look at he said, so here's your 25% blockage, and look at the width of your arteries." And he said, my arteries were like 3 to 4 millimeters wide. And he goes, "Now look at your heart." And now, mind you, when I get my scans done, the tech that they have with this camera scans from my throat to my prostate. Okay, so this scan literally will show you spots anywhere, kidney stones, it shows you everything. Okay, including the scan literally, because you know some of your biggest arteries run down your inner thigh, right here in your inner leg.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
and so his scan from 5 years ago showed that I had blockage even in those arteries in the top of my leg. So when he spins it around, he goes, "Congratulations, all your blockage is gone, including the blockage in the top of your leg." He goes, "But that's not what's impressive." He goes, "Look at your heart. You notice anything unusual?" I was like, "Yeah, that's not my heart." He goes, "I know. That's what it looks like." He said, "You understand that I scan Olympians and elite athletes every day." He said, "Your heart arteries are now, not even exaggerating by 1%, 8 to 10 millimeters wide."
Whoa, that's huge.
He
You
said
said 2 to 4 before, didn't you?
3 to 4. 3 to 4
3 to
last
4
time.
before, yeah.
Now it's 8 to 10.
Wow.
And he said, "You literally have the heart of a 20-something elite athlete." He said, "You need to go to the news and write a story about this," because he said, "You completely reversed the aging of your heart." He goes, "You have a heart of a 20-something elite athlete." And I was like, huh? Like, okay, remember, I'm doing this only because I've got this freaking burden. I can't sleep until these people get taken care of, period. I'm only doing it for a freaking burden, okay? And then he's like, "Oh, by the way, that saved your life." You're like, huh? Like, but
So
watch this. I did not think I was
you're doing it because you got to get rid of a burden,
Yes.
and you're getting rewarded,
Yes.
not knowing that you're doing that. But
And
God,
I did not know I was going to do this more than once. I thought this was supposed to be a one-time bike ride. And then my wife, again, you know, she's the navigator. She's actually on the ride. She's the secret to the entire thing. Okay. And so, but she halfway through the ride, she's like, "I think I figured it out, babes." And I was like, "What?" She goes, "I think I know the reason for this ride." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "It's to plan the rides." And I was like, "Oh, this is supposed to be an annual thing." Oh. And so the weird thing is accidentally, trust me, nobody does something crazy like this without a burden. You don't do it for the attention. Trust me, you don't. You go through. It's too much, man. And it's really you do it for the love, and you do it for the people. And like we were talking about before, you know, those 1980s little photograph things. You know, you do click the little thing, and you put the little white disc in all those photos, and you drop
what
it
were
in.
those called?
Those
Photo
little,
disc or something?
yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes, you just click
And
it.
it's this yellow thing, and
It's their freaking face. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
That's crazy.
I can't sleep, and this is the way it is. But I've always felt in my spirit, though, that my spirit's been saying this one thing. These individuals, there's going to become a time where these family members are going to say it was the worst experience that I've ever gone through. But now that I see how it's turned out, I'm glad it happened the way it did. That is why I do this, because when you sit across the table from these individuals, even though I had nothing to do with the investments, I build the plan. And so they're like family to me. And to watch the stress they have to go through. And here's the worst part. Here's the worst part about this crime. Unlike any crime, I think this is the royal flush of crimes when it comes to the amount of awareness, because usually the victim is a retiree, usually. Okay. And in this Star Grower asset management Ponzi, he stole a little over $8 million from 40 retirees. And now the thing is that the people that this happens to are so embarrassed and ashamed. They tell no one. This is not the conversation when they're playing dominoes with their friends, and they're having the monthly thing. They're not talking about, oh, last week it's gonna be crazy. I lost a couple $100,000 in Ponzi. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm getting a new car next week. It's just, and the worst part, the kids typically don't know. Not until the parents pass, and what's supposed to be theirs is not there. The parents don't even tell the kids, bro. It is the worst of all crimes, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. But if nobody's talking about this, there's no grease being applied because it's not squeaky. So if you can't tell, I enjoy being squeaky. So let me be the dude, man. I will take it. I will be the champion for these people and advocate. I've always been that dude, by the way, that's just given voice to the voiceless, that's tried to champion a little guy. I've literally, when I grew up Catholic, having a Mormon dad and a Catholic mom. Oh my God. Wow. It was the greatest household on planet. Because imagine hanging out with a bunch of people that are like the Osmonds. Like literally, they all have the greatest smiles. They're all the greatest people. And then Catholics. Are you kidding? Like they're just the greatest people to hang out with. Okay, so being raised Catholic was confirmed. Like, you just kind of, I always wanted to be a priest. Okay, and I never gave a shit about money. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to swear, but I've never cared about money.
Can we stop? Can we shit and stop here? I don't give a shit.
I told you, bro.
I don't give a shit.
Turn me loose.
All right. So the reason I'm interrupting you is because you're going down, and you don't have a hard stop after an hour.
No. Are you kidding?
Because this is going to go way longer than an hour. I can tell. We've gone as long as 2.5 hours, and I have a feeling you're going to chase that record a little bit here. But
easy.
I want to get some of these questions out. Hey, Ronaldo's on. Hi, cool. I like her. She's a friend, digital friend of mine. Oh, anyway, I got to get caught up here. We'll say hi to her a little bit later. Aaron, Turning Point. So there's 2 or 3 I want to hit here, and you've already kind of discussed this, but as you hear the question, we can dive to that point. Cool. Like for instance, Tobias, what is the turning point that made you start the ride? And there's a couple there, and I couldn't figure out which one, or is it all of them that got you to start doing this ride? We hear all the benefits. What got you going?
You kind of have to know. And this is business, by the way. Okay, so I started my first business at 13, my first 7-figure business at 21, my first 8-figure business at 28. I've had well over a dozen businesses from an idea and turn into 7-8-figure businesses. I'm answering his question with that slight little rabbit trail, because when you've got this mental condition I have of synthesia, my pictures.
What's that? Synthesia.
If you hear like a lot of like producers like Pharrell or like Rick Rubin and these guys that are on another planet when it comes to creativity, when they hear certain things, they sometimes, like Pharrell, it's like chromosynthesia, where he can hear something and then he sees a color, right? Like you hear Rick Rubin and he talks with Benny Blanco, and he was doing a song and he's like, I don't know, I just feel orange. Like that's synthesia. And there's a really, really amazing show on Netflix called The Queen's Gambit. And if you've ever seen it, it's about this gal. She's like a prodigy chess player. So she is fictitious.
Oh, that was a great movie, dude. Yeah. That was an awesome
she's
movie.
Fictitious, right? Yeah. But everybody that she plays are like real non-fictional chess players. But she had this one particular skill where she's like in this orphanage and they gave her like these little hallucinogens, and she would save them and pop them at the same time. And what it allowed her to do was she could literally look at the ceiling, see the full chess game, and play it the whole game out, each move. I can do that in my mind. And it's because of the learning disability. Now we call it learning difference, but as a kid, I was the dunce. I got the lowest SAT score of anybody in my senior class. My brain just functions differently. And I see actual pictures. And if you know anything about how the subconscious works and how you manifest things, we're talking about fourth dimension stuff. So we all operate in the third dimension, but what you sit right here, there's a conveyor belt right here. And what you sit there, most people want it. That means the conveyor belt doesn't stop moving. Once you've decided, like Cortez, when he's like, yeah, burn the boats. Either we conquer or we be conquered, but there is no retreat. You listen to Elon Musk talk, he doesn't talk about motivation. He says, either we do or we die trying. There is nothing in between. Once you've decided on something, like this is what's going to happen. And to answer Tobias's question, it comes to me when it's a burden. It's purely selfish to get rid of the burden. I don't like the Elon Musk, what he does. It's not because it's motivating or it's like, look, I have to be able to sleep. That's the only reason. And trust me, the way it freaking works for me, as soon as like that one's gone, another one shows up. And it's like, who else? At the same time, we're working to literally save small business because they're going at a rate we've never seen before. And I've got a plan to do that. Okay. You know, history works. We'll rewrite history for small business, you know, but this over here is purely like both of them are heart projects, helping small business and then helping retirees. In the end, it's about helping the people that don't have voice. And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's how this thing started. It became, you know, me hanging out with my buddy RJ, and that's how it works. I get these like messages or moments of inspiration, and then I have to wait. And it's like the old Indiana Jones movie where it's like the step of faith, where you take that first step off the cliff. But remember, you have to put all your weight on the step, and then it appears. That's how God works, man. I'm just telling you right now. That's how the dude works, you know. And so when you kind of know. And I've seen that happen. I get premonitions. I've had them since I was a kid. I bet 1,000% I've never been wrong ever on one of them. And that's how they come. They come in the form of a dream, a prophetic dream, premonition. And then I have to wait for the provision, how this is supposed to happen, what that even means. I don't know, you know. And so that's kind of the thing with this bike ride. You know, it's almost like, you know, like when you're in the hotel room and you've got that little latch on the door. And so when you open it, it opens the door like maybe 1 inch. That's how God works with these crazy visions, man. When you've got something crazy, he is not going to swing the door wide open because you'll be like, yeah, I see all that. I'm going the other way. Most of us can barely handle the 1 inch you can see at a time. Okay. And that's literally how the dude does it. He gives you a little bit of vision, and then you like headlights at night. You can only go so far. And then you have to wait until something else drops in your lap. You see what I'm saying?
You can only do what you know.
That's right? It. And you have to wait for God to bring, and I call them God's mops, miracles of provision. And it's like when you watched him send out the disciples, right? He said, go out 2 by 2. He said, take nothing. Most people think that God does miracles by like turning water into wine and parting the Red Sea. That's like 0.1% of the miracles. 99.9%. It's exactly what you saw Jesus do to the disciples. Get gone. You got to get gone. Okay. And he said, but take nothing, because you're going to watch my dad provide miracles of provision. But you got to be wearing the right lens, and your lens has to be gratitude and kindness. And that's the problem with today, is everybody wants everything so fast. And you know, like the 1980s 3D glasses, where like this is the red lens and this is the blue lens. 99% of people are walking around with the red lens on. And this is the weird thing. They're not making anything up. This is what people do not understand about how this amazing world works. At the same time, if you put on the red lens, you will see everything going wrong in your life. And you're not making anything up. It's all true. But if you put on the blue lens, remember, all that stuff is still happening, but now everything you see is through the lens of kindness and gratitude. And then all of a sudden you see all of God's miracles of provision. You're like, oh my God. What? The van. You know, this year's van. Okay, we bootstrapped this out of our Prius last year. So a bike hitch, okay, and then a cargo bag on top of the Prius, okay, and then Rebecca and I literally sleeping in the back of the Prius on an inflatable, like full-size mattress, okay, and then half the time, you know, we had those like hatchback tents. It was like a 10 by 10 room. It would be like on the back, and so it was like this really cool like little tent experience. But every day we were in a different town because I stopped every day, and so like literally we're set up and tear down of camp last year. Every day was 2 to 4 hours a day. Okay. And I'm not kidding. Okay. 2 to 4 hours. And so I was talking to Rebecca about this, and I said, I really think we have to do like a van conversion on this thing, man. I just feel like it's going to help. And I've done all my research, and I was like, I've decided, because out of the 3 vans you do conversions with, it's a Mercedes Sprinter, a Ford Transit, or the Ram ProMaster. And I was already like, first of all, I'm like the most frugal dude I know, and I literally am the laziest dude I know. So I quite literally like hate wasting time. And so I literally was like, okay, I'm going in, and and I told Beck, I think we got to do this ProMaster. And I was like, okay, we have clients of ours that have little auto dealerships. I was like, they can score me a van through the auction. And then I found a couple places that do conversions, like a great place in Colorado and a couple of places. I was like, okay, probably 20 to 30 grand to do the conversion. Okay. And so, but I decided I'm going to do a Ram ProMaster, because out of the 3 vans, the ProMaster is the widest. It's as long as you're 6'2" or under, you can sleep long ways, which means your bed doesn't have to be long;
Dang.
it can be wide, and it frees up more space in the interior. And so,
100%.
knowing this, I'm going to be doing a Ram ProMaster conversion. Okay. So then, this is not 1% exaggerated. I'm on the phone with one of our clients. Okay, again, we do small business accounting. And so, and we do a weekly radio show. Okay, and we do a weekly radio show and podcast, and we just teach business and retirement planning to our amazing clients, which are small business owners, right? So now, I'm on the phone with them, and it's he and his wife. It's Doug and Melissa. I always like to give them huge props because they're amazing. And so we're talking on the phone, and they're like, "Oh, we did a little stalking on you, and we saw your bike ride." I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's great and all that, but I said next year, you have no concept of how long it takes to set up and tear down camp every day, because it's tense and all this crap." And I said, so I kind of already decided on next year to really save the sanity on this. I've got to do a conversion. And they both start smiling. Okay. Mind you, I don't know why. When I tell you this stuff, this is exactly how it happens. We're on Zoom just like this, and they start smiling. And I'm like, okay, what joke am I missing? And then Doug says, well, Aaron, we didn't tell you this, but a few years ago, the company I was working in, I was an executive. They got sold. I wasn't an owner, but they gave me a huge severance. And so I had to make a decision. Do I take the severance, and I just basically rolled in my retirement plan and go back into corporate America, or do what I always wanted to do and start doing van conversions? And he said, we do van conversions. We only do Ram ProMasters. And he said, and he goes, yeah, he goes, and he goes, and we're kind of unique because he goes, I go and buy the van at the auction. I pass the auction price to you. And then we just charge like a flat 40K to do the conversion, full conversion, boondock ready. And I always say, it's like, it's like, I don't know, boondock chic. Like the van is designed by women for women. Okay. And so, so we're talking, and he goes, oh yeah. He goes, no problem. We can have it. And I said, well, I've got a new bike that I'm going to be using for this year's bike ride. And it's actually called a Velomobile. They're huge in over in Europe because petrol's so expensive. And he said, so
they are.
Yeah. And he goes, so and so he goes, so yeah, I said, but I'm going to need to adjust my bed up a few inches to make sure my bike can slide underneath it. He goes, yeah, no problem. And so we do it, we build it, and I am not kidding. The bike, it literally slides right underneath. So now, set up and tear down, okay, is pop the back doors, right? Rebecca and I like lift the bike, we slide it in. I hook up my hose, I spray off, because everything I wear is basically bathing suit, because I don't know. Well, in April, 25% of the time it was raining.
Those suits, those bike suits you see, is that what
you
mean?
Yeah.
Or rain gear?
No. More like sweat wicking, like athletic shirts, and I always wear swim trunks.
Yeah.
And my shoes are water shoes. So I'm literally, when you see me at all times on the ride, I can literally just be in water in 1 second. Everything that I wear is waterproof for that. So, but then watch this. So then we go into, you just watched another miracle. Okay. And so he turns out the van, he's got the banks involved, and they finance the whole thing for us. Okay. The van, the conversion, everything. Okay. And then, so then we go to the bike. Okay. Now, when you go to ponzirelief.org, you'll see pictures of last year's bike. Okay. And that bike is right now in the living room with a trainer on it. And in between meetings, I'm usually on that thing, pedaling. And so, but I knew going into this year that I needed to make sure that I didn't end up like, I needed a different bike that gave me more aerodynamic ability and gave me more like real estate where I could put my cause and everything on it. And so I kind of knew a Velomobile is where I needed to go. Now, if you know anything about Velomobiles, they kind of look like blinking bobsleds. So just imagine like a bobsled going down the road on 3 or 4 wheels. And so I've got this Velo, and but here's the thing. Like I told you before, last year, my my bike broke 5 times. And you have to make sure that you've got a normal bike shop that knows how to work on these bikes. And so of all the Velomobiles, okay, they're all carbon fiber. Like my bike's 15
Yep.
grand. Okay. It looks like a Batmobile.
Yeah, I know Velo. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I ended up, there's only one manufacturer called WOW, W-A-W. And what they do is they make the front and rear fairings where they just screw on and screw off. They're the only ones that do it. So it's 9 screws in the front, 9 screws in the back, and literally the fairings pull apart, and a bike mechanic has full access to all the gearing. They're the only manufacturer that does that. And I knew because of my ride, knowing I need any bike shop being able to get to this if it breaks, that's the bike I needed. Okay, but there's not that many for sale. You can go to like the WOW, the Velomobile forums for sale, and literally there's not that many for sale. And I knew there was one that I had my heart on that was built in 2019 by a guy in California. And if you just Google blue WOW, W-A-W Velo, and just hit images, you'll see that's my bike. That blue one is my bike, okay? And so I wanted that
I got to
one.
do that.
So I'm literally on the forums, and I see my blue WOW for sale. I say mine, the one that I've been eyeballing for years, okay?
Okay.
And so it's for sale. And here's the thing, on the forums, I don't know where the guy's located, okay? But I can see from the ad, when I was able to click from before in 2019, it showed me the guy that sold it, that built it and then sold it. In there, he said, "Oh, I sold it to a guy named Chris out of Texas." And so now that same bike is for sale. And so I sent him an email. Hey, I saw, and it was for sale like a few months ago. And I was like, I saw the blue WOW Velo for sale. Is it still for sale? And it sort of looked like you're in Texas. Fingers crossed. I'm kind of based out of Texas, you know. And he goes, yep, still for sale. And I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was like, what? Bro, I'm not even kidding. Okay. And this dude's like, oh yeah, come out, take a look. This was his daily driver. He's a corporate pilot. And for years, he taught flight sim at DFW Airport. He lives in Highland Village. And so he's like, it's a good, 20, 25-mile commute. And this was his daily commute to and from work every day. And so, like, this dude's 6'6", 300 pounds. This dude slides in this thing like a freaking F1 car. And I'm like, what? How's this? It's like a freaking clown car. You would never in 1,000 years understand what this thing holds. It doesn't make any sense. On Mother's Day, I went to HEB, got this huge bouquet of flowers for my wife. And I took my bike to the grocery store, and it always carries a crowd. And they're like, right. Where the hell are those flowers going? They are not going in this bike. And I was like, watch. And you pull the back seat up, and there's this cavern back there, bro. And you just take those flowers, full bouquet, spread out wide, all back there behind the freaking back seat, bro.
Wow.
Amazing. But I'm telling you, each and every thing for this ride, everything. And that's a big thing. I told you before, I was in ministry for 10 years, and I pastored for 7 of those 10 years.
Right.
And one of the biggest lessons, aside from how God does miracles with miracles of provision, but probably the biggest lesson I've had to learn is God's timing, right? So you can have the right idea, but if it's the right idea at the wrong time, it's the wrong idea. You have to wait. And I've always been that guy where I have these visions that it becomes a burden. So the only way the burden goes away is the vision has to happen. And then I can kind of move on. But the thing is when you start walking in that timing, if you're not careful, you can push it faster than it's supposed to happen. And then you get out of the right timing. So right idea, but if the timing's wrong, it's the wrong idea. And so I really have had to learn to just be patient and wait and watch him. And he does every single time. Just like I told you with the van, just like I told you with the bike. My first bike on the website, that's a TerraTrike Traveler. It's a recumbent trike that you fold in half. Okay, so my original idea was I would have it on the back, folded in half on the Prius. It's the only one that you can fold. It's foldable to travel with. So I went in, and basically that bike is $2,500, period. And I happened to be on Craigslist on a Saturday morning. And I just did Travelers and the Traveler, recumbent trike. And I see this thing for sale in Houston. Okay. And he said $700. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay. So I call the dude, and this is when Houston, there's a huge industry of engineers down there because of oil and gas. Okay. Like
Yeah.
1 out of 10 companies is somehow working for oil and gas. And there's an enormous amount of engineers down there. So here's what I'm hoping. So I text the dude 7:00 in the morning, hoping this dude's up. Okay. Saw your bike. Can you chat? I'm up. I can chat. And so we're chatting, and the guy's like, oh, yeah, I lived in a gated neighborhood before. I was like, okay, sounds like this dude had a legit job. Okay. And he goes, I said, so, what do you do? He goes, I'm an engineer. I'm like, oh my God, score. Okay. Which you understand. I am being a little discriminatory, but usually when you buy something from an engineer, chances are pretty decent. They took pretty good care of it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Probably engineered some things that they didn't like about it. Okay. So
Probably.
all positive stuff. So I'm like, yep. I'm literally, my wife is going to be waking up in a few minutes. As soon as she wakes up, I'm going to kiss her and say, I'm going to Houston. I'm getting this bike. So I literally, my wife wakes up. I'm like, babes, this bike, it's $2,500. This dude's selling it for $700. I'm telling you right now, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I said, I got to go. And I said, because there's a huge snowstorm coming in tomorrow. And I felt that this would be gone. I just felt it. I was like, I have to jump on this. So he and I had a conversation.
Wait, whoa. There was a huge snowstorm in Houston?
No, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Texas. Yeah, Houston froze. This is the one from like 3 years ago.
Wow.
It was
I remember that.
the big ice storm. Like
Arctic
it was,
blast.
Ice-mageddon.
Arctic blast. Yeah.
Yes. Arctic blast went all the way down to Galveston. Okay. So I knew that was coming. And I was like, I have got to get to the road. So I jump in the car, I sprint down there. And I worked out a deal because I was like, Rebecca, we've got to make sure we Zelle when we get down there. He's an older dude. He's going to take Venmo or Cash App or anything. No problem. She goes, just whenever you get close, just call me. I'll be ready to go. Cool, babe. So we get down there and I'm looking at this. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, again, an emotional moment because I've had this vision and image and it literally overlapped. And when that happens, I get overwhelmed with emotion. And I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. I need this bike. I'm not living without this bike. And I tell him I'm doing for the bike ride. And he goes, how the heck can you take that time off? I said, well, we own accounting offices and we're just super blessed, but we always leave after tax season. And he goes, okay, cool. And so I'm like calling my wife. She's not answering again. Not answering again. Again. Oh my God. She had mentioned she was going to take a nap. And when she does that, she always puts her phone in do not disturb. Okay. And I'm like, oh my word. And I was like, please, Lord, tell me you have Venmo. He's like, I don't. He goes, but maybe one of my kids. And I was like, okay, please go check. He goes and asks his daughter. His daughter has Venmo. Thank God. So I Venmo her the money. And so, and then literally on the way back, the guy calls me. He goes, you're not going to believe this. I got 2 more calls after you picked up the bike of people that wanted to come and pick up the bike because they knew it was the steal of the year. And I was able to grab it.
Wow.
And that's the crazy thing about this. God opens these doors. And again, this is my life. This is not me preaching whatsoever. This is just me reporting what I've noticed is that you like these moments happen. And I feel like a lot of times people feel like, well, if it's a real miracle, it's just supposed to literally just drop on my lap from a drone like that. But the thing is, but that's not how could you possibly think that when you go look at the model of Jesus? And what did he tell the disciples? Go, and then you'll watch the miracle provision. Go, and then watch the miracle. So they all had to leave. And they all got signed here. They got a sign there. They got a sign there. But they had to take the first steps. So I've got 1,000 of these stories, but it's only because I took the steps of faith. And he's done this so many freaking times in my life. I now know exactly what it looks like. I know, like everything. When this happens, I just know. And I learn not to fight it. I just don't argue with it. I'm like, okay, fine. And I will swear. Man, God will swear. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Like, fine. I'm going to do that. It's going to be weird. Because anytime he basically speaks, it's always weird. I never want to do it. And it's always very uncomfortable for me. Always. It's something I never want to do. And that's how I freaking know it's my boy, you know? Yeah. It's my boy, you know?
All right. Now, we are going to break down a couple of there's some really interesting questions. I'm very excited about the questions that are here because we'll get to put in some more color to what you're saying. And we've got like 20, I think 20, 30, I don't know, 15, 20 comments asking questions. So let's take care of some of these things here if we could. And all it is just diving a little bit deeper into what you've said, because that's what they're asking about here. turning point that made you start to ride. We already
Yeah.
went over that, didn't
Yeah,
we? Yeah. So took it out. What are some warning signs so
Mhm.
you can avoid
Yeah.
getting fraud? And it's all over the place, man.
Yep.
All over
Yep.
the place.
It's
And
it's
AI is
difficult
coming.
because you're in this weird situation because Wall Street beats in your brain. The only way that you can retire well is you've got to have $3 million,
Jeffrey, thank you.
and it's
Go
all
ahead.
got to be in the market. And my grandparents are unbelievably wealthy, and my grandmother never put a penny in the market.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult. So what happens is that once you hit around age 50, all of a sudden this concept of time's not my ally starts hitting you, and you realize you can't act or do what you used to do in your 20s and 30s. That doing the same thing can actually harm you. And so you kind of get in that place where you're like, okay, maybe there's other options. And then we look at other options and they're just called alternative investments. And there's 10,000 great ones. There just always is. And the difficult thing is it's usually the owner and usually one or two confidants that know it's a Ponzi. That's it. So here's the worst thing. When the broker dealer does their homework on the company and does all their background checks and they've done everything they're supposed to do, and the advisor has a contract with the broker dealer, and the companies have a track record of paying not like Madoff returns, but like just consistent rates of return, then that's all you have is you have track record, you have history,
Yeah.
and you have the faith and trust that they're doing it by the book and the broker dealer is catching it. And then whenever the house of cards starts to fall, then usually it's one, two, three people that know. Like with Madoff, the kids knew, and that's why one of them committed suicide. If you have a conscious, you can't live through that. You
It was
can't
like $1
do it.
billion, wasn't it? Wasn't that like $1
Yeah.
billion or
Yeah.
more? Something
And
like
then
that?
Sam Bankman-Fried basically his
Yeah.
made off one look like it was like Monopoly. But again,
Oh, really?
yeah, it was
Whoa.
insane. It was like 40 billion compared to 8 billion. It was something mind-bending like that. But at the same time, that's the problem, and that's a great question because if it was like, oh, here's what it is, look out for X, Y, and Z. That's not the case. That's the problem, and that's why for me, here's how we fix it. You change the punishment for those committing the crime. Okay,
Two.
attempted murder, and they should be because what's happening right now. This is what happens right now. I watch it.
Yeah.
As soon as this happens, I have retirement clients that are so heavily medicated that they are walking zombies. They have to take so much medication to not feel because they can't live with what happened to them. And remember, they did nothing, nothing. And somehow, this walking piece of trash, okay? Because what happens is how they always get them is because the SEC and the IRS always work. They're always best friends. And so the SEC almost never convicts anybody criminally. But if they can even see $1 going overseas, they bring the IRS in for tax evasion. And that's how they go to jail. Because nobody goes to jail. Remember, to go to jail, you have to convince 12 jurors that they did it intentionally. Well, you don't go to jail for being a bad business person. Okay. You go to jail for tax evasion. And so this is what happens. This is what always happens. And so they were able to track about $1.5 million that he sent overseas to China, came back and forth, didn't pay taxes. So they nailed him on tax evasion, sentenced to 5 years. And of course, these guys are such model citizens that they let them out 2 years early on good behavior. And don't forget, they go home for Christmas so they can be with their family as they're next to Jared Fogle, playing with kids. Okay. It's the pedos and the guys that do the white crime are always in the same low security prisons. There's no walls on these freaking prisons. Okay. And so they get home
And they can leave to go home for Christmas?
Damn straight. Yeah, they do. And guess what?
Really?
They get out early. And remember, these pieces of trash usually have no relationship with those that they stole from. It's usually like multiple layers. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So they're here, have a contract here that has contract with here. And then they have this client. So it's like so to this individual that they stole their life savings that has to take so much medication that they are walking zombies, to the person that stole it, it's just a dollar figure. So they get out of jail and do this. I paid my due to society, and they live off their money the rest of their life with no guilt. when people like me or the amazing advisors that manage the money or the investors can't sleep, are physically harmed, emotionally harmed because of the actions of one piece of trash. And this is, for me, I watched it. I watched people pass away early from the stress. I watched them literally. The spouses are married to zombies, and they know why, because of the amount of medication they're taking, because of the amount of stress that they're under, because they can't sleep. Right. That is why I can't rest until these people get made whole and until we change the laws. And right now we can all band together. We can sign the petition. We can, hopefully somebody knows somebody 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon gets this to our boy Trump, okay, and has somebody see this, because we've helped so many people just with this. And that's what I said before. This is not, it doesn't fix the hurricane that happened, but it is true that we can have a beautiful rainbow after.
And there's something to that. I mean, there's absolutely something to that, because right now, like you said earlier, the hurricane happened, right? I mean, the destruction, everything you work for now is gone. But that rainbow is a provision with that is attached to this bill that you were talking about earlier that creates the rainbow. Yeah. Right now, we're going to kind of jump back and forth a little bit.
Jack's got a great question. Can I answer Jack's question?
That's what I was going to
like from people leading along the way. I can tell you, the crazy thing is the bike brings a lot of attention. So anytime we pull in, and once you get north of Texas, in Texas we have our Buc-ee's. We know we have the ultimate gas station. We all know it, okay? But Buc-ee's moving north in Oklahoma, start going north, you start getting like Casey's little general stores, which honestly are the greatest little gas stations. And so Casey's last year launched their Hawaiian roll brisket sliders. Okay, trust me. The reason I remember it is because it was that delicious. Okay, and so we happened to be at a Casey's, and we had just walked up, and there was like one thing in the case, and the couple walked up right behind us, and I said, so we grab it, and like, oh dang it, and I said, oh man, and then I was wearing my jersey, pedaling for, and they're like, okay, well. And they, oh, is that your bike? Because it was on the back of the Prius. And I said, oh, yeah. And they're like, oh, man, what are you doing? I said, oh, we're riding across the country for charity and helping people of victims of Ponzi schemes. And she starts tearing up. Aww. And I said, what's going on? And she said, this happened to my dad. And she said, he worked for a company his whole career. He'd worked there like 35 years. And the CFO gambled away all their pension. And she said his best friend at work committed suicide because he was ready to retire and they had nothing. His whole life he paid in. And he goes, they said, you have to keep going. And so that's why, man, it's like, why? You can't, what are you, not human? Like, come on. And, it's like, I'm kind of a psychopath. So it's like, okay, I just kind of know how to do stupid stuff. So, and it's
a great life, isn't it?
Somebody
psychopath
asked,
is a great life.
Really strong.
Yes.
I was talking about that before. When you get to the Appalachian Mountains, it's different. Like the amount of pain, it's just from a different planet. And whenever I'm going and I can't go and pedal another like, and I always keep on me every day I have a fresh piece of tape. It's masking tape of somebody that was affected and how much they lost. And so, not exaggerating, whenever I'm like, I just can't, I'll just look down and then I just kind of tap them. And it's like the remembrance of what they have to go through on a daily basis. And to me, it's like, okay, well, this is the least I could do to help them. And I realized this is pain for like another 5 minutes. This is them every day. And so that's where it comes from. It's them and it's making them whole. It's a burden. There's no motivation. And where I'm at right now, that month before, it's 2 to 3 hours a day of cardio. And so I have.
Yeah, you're exactly a month away from it, right?
Yeah, we leave May 26th. Yeah.
May 26th.
Yeah. Wow. And so, it's a beautiful thing. a matter of fact, it was actually a gal that owns a really big PR firm in Chicago, and we were talking, and she was wanted to help me and do a lot of PR in Chicago, and she said, "But I'm super sick right now." And she said, "But this happened to my mom," and she said, "Luckily for her, her husband is an attorney, and it was a contractor that had constantly just been stealing from these people, and the difficult thing is um, if you don't have money, you don't have resources, and so." Luckily, she's like, my mom didn't have anything, but between me, the PR, and my husband, the attorney, we were able to bring this guy to justice and put him in jail. But he had done this to, it was like 30 or 40 families he'd done, maybe 100. It was crazy. Just been stealing all these years, gets a deposit for work, doesn't do the work, and just disappears. And he takes from people that don't
I
have
had that
money.
happen to me.
No
I had
way.
that happen to me. Yeah. 30 grand. Yeah.
Do you
Building
see?
equipment. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, man.
it's
I don't know why
no.
or how people do this. I don't know. I've just always been the guy. Like I just remember 5 years ago, like we were at this, we were at a pool, and somebody's like, "Hey, there's a baby bird that needs help." And normally, because the weird thing is, I'm also a big like Darwinism guy. Like the big, like survival of the fittest. The damn bird fell out. It needs to die. Right? Hello. Right? That's the freaking man in me. And then, but
Yep.
then, like the other part of me that has to take care of the less fortunate was like, let me see if I can do something. And so, I'm over there like taking my flip flops because you can't touch the freaking birds. And so I'm putting it back on the flip flop. I'm like putting it back up there. I'm like, I already know nature is going to push the thing out. I know it. But I was like, if I'm here, and I always tell people, I tend to get what I want. But when it becomes where it's at, where it's an obsessive burden, it happens unless I'm D or C, dead or in a coma. It's the only two ways these visions don't happen, because I'm just selfishly working to get rid of a burden. I'm just trying to take care of people. And unfortunately, until that we pull that off, this is what I do every year,
Yeah. What's next? As a matter of fact, great question, Dixon, here. Just exactly what you're saying. What's next after this year's mission ride?
Yeah.
And let's also touch on different things that okay, let's narrow that down. So this one is coming up, but back on Dixon's, I think it was Dixon.
Yeah,
right?
Dixon.
Yeah. And thanks again, Dick. Oh no, this is Dick. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jack, my mistake. But what's your most, I mean, 3 months you said it took you the first time, right?
5.5 weeks of pedaling. Yeah.
5.5 weeks. Oh wow, damn, dude. So you had to have had different kinds of great stories that happen, and what is your most memorable interaction with somebody from the road, like what Jack's asking here?
There it would either have been the couple where her dad lost her pension, but then there was another couple that just randomly pulled up next to me, like they pulled ahead of me, and and they're like, you gotta, we believe it was something about their cause, and they pulled off and they wanted to do a quick little, like kind of interview and kind of put it online. But honestly, I have such huge heart of gratitude for the journalists that made a big spotlight from the Chicago Sun-Times. I mean,
have you
look,
talked to them again? Have you
I will.
talked to them again?
I will.
Yeah.
And that was other great because Tracy, our coach and mentor, her career before was TV. And so she's like, she literally coached us like, okay, do your spreadsheet of all that, where are the cities, you got to research all your newspapers, blah, blah, blah. Here's how you reach them. Here's when you reach them. And she's like, and you need to get on one of the 3 markets. If you pick up one of those markets, that's really, it will carry a lot of it. And I was like, okay,
Big deal.
We'll go to Chicago. And and that we started it in downtown at Deerfield Park. And literally there's a picture of me, and right behind me is a Sears Tower. Like I'm on my bike in the park and she's on the ground, and right behind me is the picture of that. And
That's
then
awesome.
we got on the freeway, and she's like, no, I'm gonna follow you for like 10 miles. I'm like, watch me do what I do, girl. And so and I can tell you that most people are like, oh my God, bro, you rode the freeway. That's got to be petrifying. For the first 2 days it was. But at the same time, a week before
I was going to say that earlier. When you first said that, I'm like, on the freeway, but we were involved. I didn't want to stop you. You had good, but you have to get permits in that kind of, so there's a
Sort
lot of extra
Yeah.
outside of stuff
I
that you
had
got to do.
I had the Department of Transportation laws on every state that I went into, and the law specifically on the freeway. And there was a couple, but Tracy rode the freeway the whole way too. And
Right.
she's the one that was basically like, she goes, "Trust me, the Mayberry police will pull you over," and they do. Okay, and you just listen to Tom, Dick, and Harry. Okay, you got it.
Yeah.
You load up the bike, you go 10 miles down the road, you unload, and you keep going. You just got to
Right.
cross over the next town. And so, but what happens is you don't realize. The week before, I got ran over on my bike. The week before my ride, I got ran over.
Wow.
And I was on one of the main roads, and a gal was leaving an oil change place, and I could see her kind of moving up, but I broke my my responsibility here because I have a cardinal rule that whenever I see some intersection, I have to make eye contact with them, and if I don't, I just wait. And so, but the thing is I was on this main road. It was actually Main Street, and pulled I pulled onto the road because I was like, okay, if this cat like doesn't even stop, no big deal. She's gonna pull into the road. And she's gonna stop, and but she was on her phone and never looked up until
Oh
I
no.
was pinned to the pavement. And the only reason she looked up is because her car stopped, and she literally looked up and she saw that she was on top of me. And so I was in such a state of panic, but it confirmed the reason why, because that bike, now this year's bike is totally different. This year's bike, you're a blinking bobsled. You get more attention than Lamborghinis, okay? And so, but last year's bike, I mean, even with my flags on the back, you really couldn't see me real well. And so I
Sure.
rode the freeway because what you get on the freeway that you don't get anywhere else is an 8 to 10 foot shoulder with rumble strips, okay? And I'm not kidding. Once the entire time did I hear a grrr, like
Only
maybe half
once?
a mile behind me, maybe like nobody, but that is an invisible barrier
Wow.
protecting me. And so you easily do it all day long. And you'd have the Mayberry police. Well, you need to get off here, Texas or Oklahoma law or Kansas law. It was really Kansas and, oddly enough, Indiana, the state where this Ponzi came from, had the
Wow.
worst state troopers on planet Earth. Actually gave me a ticket. I was like, I'm doing
Wow.
this for you. I'm a freaking grandpa. Like, are you freaking kidding? I got 3 grandkids. Like, I'm just an old dude trying to help some people for a Ponzi that came from your state, And then, Penn State troopers. Okay. They are definitely the Paul Blarts of state troopers. Okay. So these dudes take their job way too serious. Okay. So you got the, fire marshal bill, and he walks up, and by the way, Pennsylvania, it clearly has laws of all the states. They have the most clear laws that you can ride on the freeway, the most clear. Okay. You can't. And remember,
Okay.
what happens? Somebody calls 911, and then it gets transferred. Oh, there's some crazy dude on the freeway, and then they dispatch it to the DOT, and then DOT dispatches local Mayberry PD. PD do not know the law. Their job is to reinforce what they're taught is the law. Okay, and so they have to memorize. And they are totally, because you get like, here's your law. They're like, no, 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 no. I don't want to hear it. And that's what they do. And if you talk back, like, well, again, I'm not saying anything. Well, if you want, we can have this conversation at the station. You're like, are you freaking kidding right now, dude? I'm just doing this for charity, bro. And so, but this state trooper, literally, I'm running the interstate, and he's like, okay, what you got to do is we got to do State Highway 30. He goes, you're getting off the freeway. I'm telling you right now, you're getting off the freeway. And this dude turns into like Paul Blart, and he's like, but if you take Highway 30, it's going to take you all the way to DC, and and then you're going to pick up this trail, and that trail will take you all the way into the Capitol. And so this dude turned in like the tour guide,
That's cool.
And so,
that's cool.
Yeah, and then, but I tell you, the craziest thing on State Highway 30, first of all, Pittsburgh at night when you're at the point. It is literally one of the most magical places. I grew up in Philly, okay? So, I mean, Pittsburgh was just a drive-through, and I was a kid when last time I was there. It was such a magical, and because the stadiums are on the river, the football and baseball, and they both had games going on the same time, it was one of the most beautiful, and they're all on the cliffs right there in Pittsburgh. It was magic, okay? But Flight 93 from 9/11 crashed right there at State Highway 30. So Beck and I were just pedaling, and you see this monument that you're pedaling up to. You're like, okay, that's kind of weird. And you're like, Flight 93. Oh my God. Like it crashed right here. Like right here. And not in 1,000 years would you have known it unless you happen to be on State Highway 30 and you happen to just look at this memorial sitting here. And then there was one town on the way in, and it's called Breezewood, Pennsylvania, and it's the town where like it's 3 huge freeways intersect. And so if you Google like what's Breezeway, Pennsylvania, they're like the motel town, the capital of Pennsylvania. It's because there's so many freeways that'll intersect, and so
Oh, wow.
yeah,
I
it's
didn't
so
know that.
cool. And
That's
so
cool.
so you
Yeah.
see this, and you're like, how in the heck? Like there's motels everywhere, and this town is maybe 1,000 people. It's tiny, okay? It's tiny, and so but remember we're talking about premonitions. And so
Yes.
that morning, I happened to get up. I got a cup of coffee, brought it back to our little room, and I was like, okay, I need to get another cup. So I went back up to Starbucks, and normally I go through the drive-through. Okay, it's in the Prius that goes through the drive-through. The van doesn't, but the Prius did. And so I'm going through, but all of a sudden my spirit says, "Park and go in, park and go in, park and go in," and I'm like, okay.
Okay.
And there's one car in the parking lot, and it's like a Honda Accord, and this dude's got like a really sweet racing bike on the back. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I can basically relate to anybody. So as I'm going in, I'm trying to figure out what to say to whoever's in there, because I have to go in to talk to whoever's in there. Okay, that's the mission. So remember, we're in Breezewood, Pennsylvania, the motel capital of Pennsylvania, in the middle of nowhere. Okay, and no, I'm from Dallas Fort Worth. Okay, so the dude's like, okay. So I walk in and I see this like young dude, and he looks like a John Cena. Okay. And when I walked by his car, like his back seat was completely full of crap. And so it looked like he was like moving or something. So I walk up and like, bro, and it was like a Cervelo bike. I mean, dude, it was a sweet road bike. Okay. I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
sweet bike. And he goes, oh, thanks, dude. I said, man, your car's full of crap. I said, looks like you're going somewhere. He goes, oh yeah, I'm moving. I'm relocating. He goes, I just got an officer school in the Air Force here at Quantico, because I'm right there. And he goes, and I'm actually driving. I just been stationed in San Diego. I was like, dude, that's awesome. And I said, I was born in San Diego. My parents were in the Navy. Actually born at Balboa Hospital. And I said, that's awesome. I said, so are you like from Virginia? He goes, no. From a little town in Dallas Fort Worth. And I was like, I'm sorry,
A
what?
lot of people from Dallas in your life, man.
What? And he goes, yeah. He goes, it's a little town. He goes, you know where the Cowboys play? And I was like, yeah, they're in Arlington. He goes, yeah, I grew up in Arlington, Texas. I said, I'm Mansfield, the town next to Arlington. Like, what? Bro, Breezewood, Pennsylvania. The spirit says, talk. We swap numbers. He and I still connect. His parents are still here in Arlington. Like, I'm telling you, bro, this is what's amazing about life. If you put on the blue lens of kindness and gratitude, and you're expecting God's mops, you got to expect this stuff. All of a sudden, you will start seeing them everywhere. And then life becomes a freaking adventure, bro. Then every day is like, great. What else are you going to tell me to do? Okay. Can't wait to be uncomfortable today. That's every day, bro.
I'm gonna add to your little Twix there. My son and his wife, my daughter-in-law, right? Just had their first baby.
Oh,
my
congrats.
grandbaby. It's more important that it's my grandbaby than their baby. So let's just establish that.
By the way, I
But
got
they
3
li-
grandkids, so yes.
I know I have 2. Well, long story, but they live in Frisco, Texas.
Shut up,
right
dude.
outside of Dallas. Yeah,
What?
totally serious. Yeah,
Bro,
yeah.
you want to hear
I'm going to be moving there.
what? Dude,
Yeah, I am.
that's fantastic. That is amazing.
No, it's awesome.
I'll tell you,
I go
one of
there
the
all the
funniest
time.
stories ever of running into somebody I went to school with, and I told you that before, where I graduated high school and my only award was class clown. Hand the Bible. Okay. So we all deal with our insecurities, and so mine was just making people laugh, and that's how I got my fulfillment. Okay, whatever. And I had no other talents. Okay. And so I told you before, literally, I've only heard of one person in my whole life that has a worse SAT score than me, and that was Kevin Hart. So I made a 590, but I went to every
God, that's so
SAT
funny.
prep class. I studied my butt off. Kevin Hart drew pictures and got a 540. Okay, he drew pictures.
Yep.
And almost tied me. Okay. And so for me, school just wasn't my jam. And so it was always that thing where, hey, get it. But that's what's so crazy about it is, for me, it was that I didn't really have any gifts or talents. And so I just always kind of leaned into, and I think there's probably like a couple guiding, I don't know, philosophies that I've always lived by. And one of those, I always call it like my law of radical responsibility. So anything that happens to me, and I've been like this my whole life, anything that happens to me, especially if it's bad, I ask myself one question. Is there anything I personally could have done to have kept it from happening? If the answer is yes, I know who to blame, or at least I'm partially to blame. And then so that would be I would be considered like radical responsibility. Okay, then and these are core values, like life core values. And so yes, everybody here on the team knows these, but it's not because they're company core values. They're just our core values that bleed
Mhm.
into corporate. And one of the huge ones, it's not my idea or your idea, but the best idea that wins. We encourage best practice. And so if you literally did those two things, just those, the weird thing that happens is that all of a sudden you now realize you're in complete control of your life. You're not a victim. Things don't happen to you. There's really no such thing as a gray cloud, right? Like if you saw everything that happened and you asked yourself, why is that happening? Did I have something to do with that? Can I? And I don't know, man. It's just kind of a weird thing. And so, but I think Jennifer had asked a question. What was Jennifer's question? Because I see Ryan's question. But what was Jennifer's question? Do you ever
Do you
ride?
ever?
Yes. So,
I
and
thought
by the way,
we kind of went over it. Thank you, Jennifer. Sorry
yeah,
about that,
because well,
Jennifer.
no, because
Thank you.
in the way this ride is, but I'm going to answer that because so the way this was me and my wife, and so I would bike, and Rebecca would bike like, or she would go like 20 miles ahead of me in the Prius, and so she would be working, and I would always catch up to her, and so so I would go, and I would literally go, and I would help, I would bike up to her, and then once I got to like about 4 hours of biking, okay, that's when she starts taking my temperature and how I feel. Because I can do 4 hours of biking, no problem. Okay, so just go. Because remember, this is not a race; it's just a Saturday morning bike ride, right? Remember that. So
Mhm. Mhm.
this is just, hey, you go at your own pace. There's no speed you're trying to break here. And so when you do it, um, she was really the secret as the navigator, because the whole day, she and I run the day of the accounting firm. Okay, and so she's meetings, doing all that. And I would typically get on the bike around 10 a.m. So I would do meetings in the morning and then bike for 4 to 6 hours, sometimes 8 if I got really behind on where we needed to be, but usually
Right.
like 4 to 6. And then I'd get off the bike and then we'd have meetings in the evening. Like, so work was a part of this ride. And so, but she would be the one that's navigating, working all the PR, getting all the interviews set up. Babes, my bike just broke. She's finding a bike shop that can work on recumbent trikes. And then when I get tired, because there is no such thing as knowing when we're sleeping that night. You do not know, because it's based on when I get tired. So she cannot figure out where we're staying, because it has to be within like a 10-minute radius of when I say I'm done. So she
Wow.
then has to
Ooh,
get on
that's
hip
tight.
camp, get on what truck stops, a piece of grass that we can basically stay in for the night. And that was literally how we navigated it last year. But going into next year, to Jennifer's question, it's just she and I. But next year, I feel like I want to start opening up where people can kind of hang out and do the ride with us. Where like we'll
Yeah.
have like, hey, come and ride from Dallas to Oklahoma City. Like
Ooh.
we could like have these points where people just ride like 50 miles with me, and we just hang out. And
Yeah.
and starting this year, I'm not doing the freeway. I'm doing kind of more of the, it's not Route 66, but it'd be like more of the Route 66 route, because now I'm not worried, because my bike is a blinking beacon, bro. It's very, very visible. So I feel way safe, more safe in this year's bike. Ryan asked a great question. How do you balance your business with this advocacy work?
Exactly.
Um, the 2 months going in, um, my days turn into 16, 18-hour days. And so, because, and again, with the accounting firm, we have like regular season and then off season. And then regular season is January 1 to May 1. And so starting May 1, we start implementing all the new initiatives that
Today.
we're starting all the new initiatives. And so we've got new training and stuff we're doing next week. So in the next 2 weeks, I'll be in the Tulsa office. And so we have all these new initiatives. I leave in a month. Okay. Don't forget that the charity ride is two-part. One, it's the charity. So I had to completely build and do the entire website this year with an amazing, my back office
Wow.
team, help build the whole website, and then building all the content, my FAQs, what we want to do, how we want to do it, the petition, the letter, all of the content. Okay, that's just for the non-profit piece of it, like the charity piece of it. But then there's the bike piece of it, or the ride itself. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now I've got on the back of the van, I've got my plug-in swing hitch, so that way I can put my tubs back there. Last week, I basically, because what I eat on the ride, every hour on the hour, I stop and I eat the same thing every hour on the hour. One, it's a Cliff
What's that?
Bar. Two, it's a pack of peanut butter crackers. And three, it's a pickle popsicle. Okay. So
First
the
two made sense.
yeah,
First two made sense. I used to do that.
the
Peanut butter's
number
awesome.
pickle juice is the greatest source of electrolytes on planet Earth. It's
Seriously,
like a
I didn't know that.
bottle of Pedialyte in one popsicle stick. Okay, and I don't
Wow.
freeze them. So literally in the morning, I'll put in like probably 6 of everything, 6 like just room temperature popsicle sticks, 6 of my Cliff Bars, 6 of my peanut butter crackers, and I just go, and then literally on the hour, pop, I rip the top, and I shoot the popsicle, and I'm not kidding, man. Not once did I ever lose my energy. Not once. Now,
Wow.
going through the Appalachians and going through the Ozarks when I'm going through Central Missouri, that way on I-70. Oh yeah, no, you get tired where your legs are on fire, where you're, but the energy, I don't lose it. And so to Ryan's question, so there's that piece of it, making sure the charity, the whole piece that is there. Then don't forget, there's the other piece, which is I'm finalizing my pilot's license. And so the funny thing is I got my solo endorsement 3 days before last year's bike ride. So we left last year, April 22nd on a Monday. I got my solo endorsement 3 days before on Friday the 19th. And so literally I'm on the phone tonight with my CFI and we're getting my check ride date, which is probably going to be around May 19th, which is a week before I leave again to get my private pilot endorsement, right? So
redo it again, right?
I've got all of that. I've got to get finish my night landings. I've got to work on my maneuvers. I got to tear everything apart, make sure I'm ready for my oral and my check ride. And all of that is happening. And the crazy thing though, is I've always been the dude that goes at that pace. And so when I was in ministry for 10 years, and out of those 7, I pastored for 7 of those 10 years, I ran the 2 largest ministries in the church. I was a small groups pastor and the volunteer coordinator while I was running the practice. And multiple times, like every 6 months, a senior pastor and executive pastor would take me to lunch and they're like, hey dude, we just need to, we're just really concerned about you. I feel like you're burning the candle both ends. I'm like, this is like my normal speed, dudes. Like, what? This is like, but where I broke was when I also started the homeless ministry. And because up to that point, like everybody has different capacities. So think of like capacities in like different size cups. Like most people have like between an 8 and a 12 ounce capacity cup. Most people, okay. Some people are like stressed out all the time and they have like little 4 or 6 ounce capacity cups. Some people have like Sonic Route 44s, okay. And then some people have like 5-gallon buckets. Okay. I would say mine's probably like a 1-gallon bucket. Okay. So my capacity is enormous, but it's not something like what an Elon or these crazy dudes deal with on their capacity, but mine's a lot. And so it took me years. And then once we started the homeless ministry, I broke. And then I came up with a 10-10 ministry. And it was a 10-10 principle in ministry. It's this concept where, because in ministry it's really bad where 20% of the people do 8% of the work. That's normal ministry. And that's normal in Pareto's principle everywhere, but it's really normal. And it's literally measurable almost to the percentage in church. Okay. And so I kind of had like this epiphany, like, wait a minute, you've been trying to carry this 100-pound bag of concrete this mile by yourself. You can't. You need to create a leadership team and together. And the idea in my mind was like the 10-10, where 10 of us link arms and we all carry 10 pounds, but then we all do it together and walk the mile. And I was like, and so what was born from there, okay, was the 10-10 principle. And from there, I created the leadership principles that allow me to run the largest ministries in the church part-time. And my entire team was volunteer-led part-time. Nobody in church had done this. I was the only one. And I had pastors fly me all over the world for me to speak in these conferences. And I was like, why the hell do you want to talk to me? I'm like a nobody, man, like literally a nobody. And they said, do you know how church is done over here? And I was like, no. And they said, okay, in America, somebody that donates out of $100 that you give to a church, the healthiest churches in America, $10 of that goes back to local community in which you live and work. 10%, the healthiest of all churches. 90% of all churches, 100% of what you tithe, even though you're guilted into giving it on a Sunday. Okay. And by the way, you're never supposed to tithe. You're never supposed to tithe your money. It was always supposed to be tithe your talent. And if your talent happened to be making money, tithe that. But it was like,
that's what I have a problem with religion as a structured thing, because it's not about God. It is, but not really. I mean, you said you're a lover of God, but not a.
I'm a Jesus freak, man. That boy changed me. Yeah.
That's the message that should be told. Period. I mean, that's where you're going to his house, to experience.
You wanna hear something
you
crazy?
learn some things. Yeah, go ahead,
So,
man.
so I'll tell you a story. So when I got in ministry in 2006, first of all, my mentor Lewis, he's still in ministry, still bivocational. He's still a registered nurse and pastoring today. And actually a little church outside of Fresno, California. And so Lewis, I always call him my Latino Jesus. So he was like a couple years older than me, but he was always like this dude full of wisdom, and he always spoke in freaking parables. Okay, so
Oh,
I'm a couple
that's
years,
cool.
and first of all, he called me into ministry, and he's like, "No, Andrew, you got a calling in your life." I'm like, "Bro, I'm a dirty dude. I ain't your boy." And he goes, "You're freaking running an 8-figure company with 100 employees. What the hell are you talking about?" And I was like, "Bro, I'm dirty." And he goes, "If everybody was clean, nobody would
Everybody's
be in,
dirty.
in ministry." And he goes, "You're
Everybody's
to leave."
dirty,
And I was like,
man.
"Okay."
Yeah.
And I made a conscious decision. And what I decided at that moment is I decided to trust what Lewis saw in me more than what I saw in myself. And that has been a constant discipline of mine from that very moment. If you're in my Fokker circle of trust, if you're in my circle of trust and you call something in me, I'm going to trust you more than myself. Okay. Because that damn little voice lies to you, and it lies a lot. Okay.
It
And
does.
so for me, being able to kind of have that, I don't know, have that circle of trust that I could kind of lean on. And so Louis calls me into ministry. I said, "Fine, I trust you." We go into a couple years later. So this is like, I got called in 2006. So like between like 2008 and 2009, I really felt I really loved this ministry stuff, working on the weekend. And I said, "Thanks, Jeff." It says Jeff. Okay. So
Jeff Lab, that's
yeah, yes.
awesome. It
Okay.
says Aaron is dropping truth bombs,
And
baby.
so, bro, this is just me doing it a thousand times wrong, and all I'm doing is talking about experiences that I've had. That's it, okay? And so I literally, we've got this. Okay, what were we just talking about? Because I'm reading these freaking comments. Remind me, what we were just
Oh,
talking about.
we were just talking. What the hell?
You guys know.
You put me on the spot.
I know, right?
Give it. Right. So you
You're
were
watching.
talking.
Okay, hold on. Okay, Lewis. Okay, so
Ministry.
Lewis. Okay, so
Ministry.
calls me to ministry. I trust him. Okay, 3 years
Yep.
in, I take Louis to lunch because I want to do more of the weekend stuff, ministry, and less of the practice. Okay, so this is how Louis answers me. Okay, and I say, okay. He goes, when I got in ministry a few years ago, remember I told you, whenever you hear the, I know God's about to speak. Period. Okay.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so
that's right.
he goes, whenever I got in ministry a few years ago, he goes, I was struggling with the same thing. And he goes, I took my mentor to lunch, and he said, my mentor gave me the best definition of ministry I've ever heard. He said, first of all, do not think of ministry as in what you do on the weekend. He said, first of all, Jesus did no ministering in the church. I'm like, you're right. He's like, Nicodemus, get your fat butt out of that tree and let's go hang out. Hey, cat, around the well in the village. Do you even understand your gifts and talents? Just close your legs, man. Let's do something cool together, right? Like, that's how my boy was. And so he did nothing in the church. He actually despised the people who went to church because all they did was spend hours and hours in walls reading the Torah. That's why all of his disciples couldn't read. All of them. None of them could read. Okay. And so then Lewis says, I was struggling with the same thing when I got in ministry. My mentor gave me the best definition. He said, don't think of ministries and what you do in the weekend. Think of ministry in its purest form as simply helping people suffer less. Helping people suffer less. And Louis said, as a registered nurse who's CCU, CCU and cardiac, he goes, what I realized is what I do in the hospital is actually more ministry than what I did on the weekend. And what we realized here is what we do in the practice is more ministry than we do in the weekend. Well, literally, our beautiful disasters are our mom and pops, our Venti business owners. Venti does not mean large. Thank you. Paul Rudd has a great skit on that. Venti means 20. So 0 to 20 employees.
No kidding.
Come on, baby.
Yeah,
They're the
who
greatest
was it
business
that-
owners ever, the mom and pops. Paul Rudd. Go watch the Paul Rudd Venti sketch. You will cry. Period. End of story. You will cry. Okay.
Wow.
And but remember, it just means 20. So 0 to 20 employees. And so for me, it was really about being very, very intentional to, I don't know, like I just really from that point, and something else that actually changed my life at that time. And I'm sorry that I'm literally just throwing up all over you guys, but there's so many, I just feel like all of us are just this beautiful quilt, and we're all just, I don't know, patches of all these amazing people that have poured into us. You see what I'm saying? Like, and so, I don't know. I've just always felt like, God puts people in our life to kind of help us through this stuff. And so if I could ever be, some type of encouragement to you guys, I want to do that. And so what's Ronaldo? It's God-given gift for your mind to never shut down. I have the same. So how do you rest or re-energize? Bro, it's like you have literally been in the prayer closet. My brain doesn't turn off, man. It is torture. It really is pure hell. And so for me, I have an
Damn it!
evening
I thought
routine.
I was on the whole time. I've been talking to you, and I realized
Shut up,
I
dude. You've been
focused on.
saying something. I haven't heard
I
anything.
have.
Come on.
I know. Well, I said it. If you go in the green room, maybe you can hear it. But this is awesome, man. This is a great show. Go ahead. I didn't want to stop you, but
So
I was enjoying that.
That was you know, like what Ronaldo was saying. There's not really it doesn't shut down, and unfortunately, it really is torture. My brain
Yeah.
is torture. And it's not. But I tell you, Ronaldo, I'll tell you one of the best books I ever read that helped me with the brain that we share. Top 5. I've read close to 1,000 books in my life.
I got that same thing, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes it's impossible.
And I'll tell you, out of my top 5 favorite books, 4 of them are business related, but one of them is not, and it's Getting Things Done by David Allen. So like 20 years ago, I read this book and it changed my life. And he talked about a couple things in the book, because what I call is he wrote this thing, in my opinion, taught the best organizational system I've ever seen before or after. And this was done before technology. So it was like using a file system with scratch pieces of paper, and it's being able to capture those thoughts as they come in. So I always say, like, it's like building a fly paper trap on the inside of your brain. So as these crazy things go in, you only have a couple seconds to capture it before it's gone.
Yeah.
You only have a couple seconds. And so for 20 years, I've worked on my own internal FIRST system, file index retrieval system, that literally is all from that book. And the great thing, Ronaldo, about your brain and about my brain is that life is inspiration. So when we're out and about, it's usually in the weird places where we get those ideas of inspiration about something else.
Great point.
You have to, within seconds, be able to go somewhere, grab that note, or it's gone. And the thing you got to understand about how your brain works is that the body has a built-in mechanism. If you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it. And that happened to me in ministry, because I've made so much money in business because I can see trends 5 to 10 years before they happen. And I'm very creative in what I think of and what I do. And so I ended up going in, and when I was in those years of ministry, it was just task, and didn't allow myself to be able to think and to create. And when I resigned in ministry 10 years later in 2016, 7 days a week for 10 years. And I remember it was like 3 months later, I'm driving by the church on the main road, and all of a sudden, like it was yesterday, I can remember exactly where I was at, exactly what I was feeling. And all of a sudden, the faucet turned on, and I had the first creative thought that I'd had probably in 3 or 4 years. And I started crying, man, because I get paid for that. I get paid to be able to think, create, bring it to market, and their feelings. It's a feeling. Okay. I was one of the first guys to bring Razor scooters to the States. One of the very first people to start.
Really? Whoa. Yeah. I know Razor scooters.
I was the largest grandfather retailer in the country of grandfather clocks, like by a mile, using something called a web page. And so and that's how
I've heard of those.
I got into it, because I was marketing. I had my marketing guy, and basically it was actually my business partner, and he gave me his magazine, and he was like, "You got to read about this thing called Razor scooters." The fad started in Seattle. That's where they started, was in Washington. And we're like, "Oh, dude, we got to jump on this." Nobody knew about this. It was a tiny little article. So we went to an importer. Say, can you get us, like, like not the Razor ones, but like the knockoffs? Like, "Oh yeah, definitely." And so they're like, "Okay, we'll bring in the containers, and you just kind of buy them like on demand." And I said, "Okay, brilliant." Do my marketing, I get my orders, and then we would just ship these things. And then they literally there was so many that so watch literally how we ended up getting to where we're at today, because it got to the point where literally gas stations had pallets of these Razor scooters, and we're like, okay, nobody's buying anymore. So then we went back to our import-export company, and we're like, "Hey, do you have anything else that kind of sells kind of hot? Because I've got a marketing system. So like, if you can give me a product," it's like, this is what he says. He goes, "I know it sounds crazy, but these little cuckoo clocks sell like crazy." And I'm like, "Freaking cuckoo clocks? Like cuckoo?" He's like, "Yeah, those." And I was like, "All right, whatever, we'll try it." I started to sell the hell out of them. I was like, "What? what? And so within 3 years, we're the largest retailer of grandfather clocks in the country, selling
Crazy, man.
not where the largest retailers would be selling like, I don't know, like 30 clocks a month. We would be selling 300 a week, cross country. Okay. And so then watch this. So this is now February of 02. Okay. 9/11 had just happened.
Hold
Okay?
on. I just caught up to that. 300 a week
Yes.
is what you just said?
Yes.
Okay. I was reading
Through-
Ronaldo's message, but
Yes.
that's
through this thing called a website.
shitload.
Okay. And so,
Yeah, I've heard of
my
it.
lower tier clocks I had manufactured in China. I had everything brought into High Point, North Carolina, the furniture capital of the world. I basically
Oh, I love
found
that
white
place.
glove delivery services that will basically take my clocks, where they go all over the country, they bring them in, white glove, they set it all up, blah, blah. Okay. But my high-end clocks that were handmade were made in Toronto. And so, and it was an aircraft company. And so all my clocks, like I have a clock right now in my foyer that I would sell for $5,000, but I paid like $1,500 for it. But it's got like 8 layers of lacquer on it. It's those high-end clocks. And so, but then check this out, February of 02. So my insurance guy that sold me my policy for my furniture, his name is Eddie. And so Eddie comes in my office. He's like, Novinger. He's like, bro, he goes, you got to check out these new limited health plans. I said, bro, I do furniture. What the hell are you talking about? You do insurance? I don't even know what you're talking about. He's like, okay, whatever. And he comes back 2 weeks later. He's like, bro, I made $5,000 selling these policies last week. I'm like, all right, whatever. You got 10 minutes. Tell me what you're doing. Okay. So watch this. So this is, I can't even make this crap up. Okay. So February of 02, the dude tells me this. Okay. And so, March of 02, we sign on. I didn't even know what the hell the product is, but as a small business owner, you have to understand, I've always built crap for me. Okay, so I've always been a small business owner. Don't have a spouse that has group health, and this is before Obamacare. So you either had individual health insurance, where you had to be individually written, group health, or discount plans. There was nothing else. Okay, so okay, we could not, because I've always been a really thick dude. So even though I'm all muscle, I'm always outside of my BMI, and I'm like, there's nothing I can do, And so they're like, okay, well, we have to be intentional. And I said, look, I'll try this thing. I said I can see the benefit because it's limited underwriting to help people like me. And our really our firm really was all about getting insurance for those that couldn't really afford it or qualify, which meant you weren't too poor to get the government or state. It was those that made like $50,000 to $150,000 a year. Those people, us, I'm getting healthcare from me. Okay. And so
The
the dude's
great
like,
middle class.
yes, us.
Oh.
Yes. Working class, blue collar, just normal folk, man. That's it. Okay. So I go in and so I start selling March of 02. Okay. And we had like 10 empty cubes in the back of our customer service room for and I was like, look, let's just throw some marketing and see what the hell happens. But remember, I did not know really anything about the product. So the company we brokered with, I said, can you bring in your trainer to train my people? Because I don't even know what the hell we're selling really. And so they said, yeah, no problem. So I'm not exaggerating. Okay. This is hand to Bible exactly what happens. Okay. We start selling in March of 02. All I know is as soon as I turn the ads on, my phones are ringing off the hall. I've got the agents that are selling like 20, 30 plans a day. Like, what? Okay.
What ads? Where'd you?
I like direct response marketing. So I've been a big believer in massive action equals massive results. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're not seeing the results you want, 99% of the time it's because you're not throwing enough marketing at it. Because you've got to engineer your success, and you can't depend on referrals. That's a great system, by the way, but if you want to get there in 30 years, that's cool. But I have to engineer my success. Okay. I got to build some marketing at it. So we do it. And okay, this is March of 02. Their annual convention is May, 2 months later. Okay. So, and they had just launched 10 months before. So they were in their very first year of launch of these brand new limited health plans. Okay. We started with them 10 months into the 12-month year. Okay. And in May, I had no idea this was going to happen. And they basically do the award for like top advisor. And we get the award for #1 sales rep for the entire company. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? But that's always been my thing, is if the product has to stand alone, if the product gets me excited, I know it's going to get other people excited. It's like my litmus test. So that's kind of how I knew. And then, so from there really kind of started, really kind of just that equal opportunity to give access to equal. And so you can see behind me, these are my boys. I mean, where's my boy? Oh, his pictures, it broke. But John D. Rockefeller, my boy. I spent most
No
of my
doubt.
life studying the greats. You can see this is Walt Disney.
I like
Sam Walton, Ray Kroc, Edison, all my boys. I had those hand sketched years ago.
Wow.
And so,
Wow. Those are
but
cool.
I've studied them my whole life. And you understand that, like, the only thing that separates great small business from great large business, it's freaking knowledge, man. That's it. Knowledge. That's it. And the problem with mom and pops is they don't have the discretionary income to pull this off. And so it's not until you get somewhere like between 25 and 50 team members where you start having discretionary income to start hiring one of those plates that you have to spend that you don't really know much about. Okay. And I always say small business owners always have to spin the same 7 plates. Always. Okay. Plate number 1's the trade. That's the trade. Always. That's the dry cleaner. That's owning the donut store, whatever it is. Okay. 2, the number 2 plate, accounting. What do you mean? People just say I make delicious food and I'm supposed to open a restaurant. I know, but if you don't know how to look at a P&L, know what your budget looks like, know what a balance sheet is, and know what that actually means, you're out of business in 5 years. And you're like, I know, but I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I just make delicious food. I know. Plate number 3, by the way, is your HR plate. What are you talking about? Well, I mean, unless you're going to be the person that greets them at the front door, also seats them as the waiter, also cooks the food, also cleans the dishes, also runs the office, you're going to need team members. What are you talking about? You need to know how to spend the HR plate. Like what? How do I pay him? 1099, W-2. How do I do the IRS? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? How do I even submit the IRS? How much taxes should I take out? Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I just make delicious food. Right. But you'll be out of business if you don't know the HR plate. Customer service plate. Small business owners, this is one of the biggest mistakes small business owners make, man. I'm telling you right now. They take their business personally, and they should. And then they make the mistake of taking feedback personally, and that's where they screw up. You will not believe the amount of times business owners get butthurt and they get triggered because somebody is saying, "Hey," and you understand when a customer actually is like, "Hey, I'm coming to you," because they know more than likely they're going to get their head bit off, because it's what all small business owners do, because they don't know the skill of customer service. It's a skill. You have to learn how to do this right, and they don't. And then don't forget, you've got your sales and marketing plate, your website, your landing page. How are you supposed to get on Google? You got to get your customers there. How do I do my SEO stuff? How do I get in the Google Maps so when somebody does Mexican restaurant near me, I show up with on the border? How do I do that? I don't know. But I just make delicious food. I know, but you need to know how to spend that plate. Don't forget, you need to build systems and processes that run your business. So that way, when you're not working, you know that the door is always answered the same way. The phone is always answered the same way. The food recipe is always done the same. That is called standard operating procedures, systems and processes that run your business. That is the 6th plate you have to spin. What the hell are you talking about, dude? I just make delicious food. Right. But unless you're going to go in the grave, you need to know how to build a team that can give duplicatable, replicatable service. Holla, playa. And don't forget, the last plate that everybody forgets about, what POS software you're going to use, what merchant processor. Don't forget that HP printer is going to go out the second you need it, and that piece of crap goes out, and now for 3 hours, you are now the IT, spinning the IT plate. Our business owners spin all of them at the same time. Now you know why. They're the hardest working people, the least underserved. They're in the worst physical health. All of that is because nobody takes care of them. And the thing is they don't have the money to hire people that are experts in those plates, so they do the best they can. These are the greatest people on planet Earth. And I've always said this, the 3 things worth dying for in order: God, country, and our mom and pops. This is what makes America America. This is what makes us the land of opportunity. I did one of my interviews with one of our business owners, and she came here from Guatemala, 26 years old, spoke no English, none. Okay. Ends up basically working front desk of a body shop, totally transforms it. 14 years later, the guy gives her the business. Then she runs a successful body shop, totally male-dominated industry. She kills it.
Yeah.
Got this great business. And it's like, bro, that is number 3 small business. It's showing up here with the clothes on your back and a couple $100 and making something of yourself. That's what makes this country amazing.
That's what the definition of America. Just I'm saying the same thing. It's
true, man.
America's beautiful because, as a general sense, it sometimes regulations and bullshit happens.
Yeah.
But as a general sense, you come here to make your American dream, because you have so much access and information and support. Not necessarily support, but you're able to do that where you have no dream of it anywhere else.
It's true, man.
So going back a second, Ronaldo says, I keep paper with me all the time. Remember when you were talking about the head?
By the way, I used to do the same thing, and I would keep moleskin journals. And you'll see my bookshelf, I have countless moleskin journals, and but here was my problem.
What's a moleskin?
That's a black journal that it's just that black journal that's got all the lined paper, and it's got that little rubber band, that little band where it goes around.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
The standardized black journal that everybody has. And so I've got countless of those. But then the problem is that my file index retrieval system, it didn't really allow me to retrieve what I was documenting. And so about 15 years ago, I started using Evernote. And I'm not saying that you should use Evernote. What I'm saying is an electronic system like Microsoft OneNote is great. Wunderlist is great. I've just always been an Evernote guy. And I also think very linearly. So as I get ideas that flow through my brain, I capture it on my flypaper. I have the exact notebook to go to. I grab whatever data dump file I'm in, and I just drop the note in real quick before it flies out the brain. And so my problem with always keeping paper with me, unless it's electronic paper, is I can never remember where the hell I put that note, and I couldn't get to it. So now I can literally think of anything.
I know.
And within literally 2 or 3 seconds, I can retrieve whatever it is from years ago. Oh yeah, it had this word in it, and I can pull it up. And so, and if
Brain's
you're always
amazing, isn't it?
That's fantastic.
Brain's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's all my electronic system. I've always had a 5-minute memory. My memory is horrible. But that's one of the things that David Alley even said in the book. He said, watch, because he said the brain is the worst filing common ever. Everything that you have to get to regularly should never be stored in your brain. It should be in a filing place where you can get to it. He said, think of your brain, it's got a bunch of rocks in it, but that's rocks that you have to get to regularly. So you got to put those in a place you can get to, and then that by itself frees up that space. And he's like, what'll happen is you'll start remembering everything. And I'm calling BS. And so, and I swear to you, it's true. And let me tell you, when I was in ministry, I was on for all 3 services, and you have to meet everybody. And mind you, I have a horrible memory. You can literally tell me your name, and then 1 second, I don't remember it. Okay. And so I got
I'm guilty.
Stuck. Yes. And so as a pastor that has to meet 3 services, I have to meet, I'm in between 3 and 4 new couples a weekend to a dozen. And they only meet one person, me. So they always remember my name. But next week, they expect me to know their name. And then the 12 people that I just met again. So I kept in Evernote, I had this like notebook called Church Faces, basically. And every week was a week. And I would jot. Every time I met somebody, I would like go quickly around a corner, and I would open up that week's note and put in the couple. And like, I'll give you a perfect example. One of them, and written down, this is 15 years ago. I remember like it was yesterday. Brent and Stephanie. I won't give you their last name, but I have it in my mind. Okay. But it's because, just like David Allen said in the book, once you empty your brain and you start going and putting it in, just the act of you doing it, not even with your pen. Normally you're like, oh, but it's the muscle memory. It works the same thing with typing. And I am not kidding. Your brain starts remembering everything, bro. Everything. Isn't that crazy? So
that is crazy.
So what she's saying, keep your pen. And by the way, I started really being obsessive by keeping, because I was at a conference about 20 years ago, and Colin Powell was speaking. And talking about
great guy.
Yeah. And he was talking about always keep pen and paper with you. And he said this one phrase, or I don't know, saying, he said, the faintest ink is more powerful than the strongest memory. And I was like, holy hell, I got to write this stuff down. And so I started writing everything down from that moment. And then within a few years, Evernote kind of picked in, and I was like, I got to do it that way. And I've got tens of thousands of notes in my Evernote file, like tens of thousands, everything is in there. But I also have an illness where I have to document and transcribe everything because of my OCD. So literally I have a file, and it's called waiters. Literally, you go look every restaurant, the date, what town, the state, who the waiter was, what restaurant we're in, for years and years and years. Okay. I can tell you exactly who our waiter was 4 restaurants ago. Her name was Whitney. And so like, I have an illness. Okay.
That's
like,
crazy.
How do you function? I'm like, bro, you don't even understand what's in this brain, man. It is pure torture. Okay.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. And thank God it is. I mean, we do a ADHD, we do those different topics, and literally your brain is different than anybody else. And listen, we're going to break that record I was talking to you about earlier. I am button up to something that I'm going to ask. Is there anything you haven't covered that you want to, or a final statement, so we can we're gonna have to do another one of these, but I mean, I wish I could stay on. What's that?
I literally, my alarm's been going off. I've missed like 3 meetings already, but we've been having such a great time. And honestly, anybody that can help champion the cause, and you'll see, you guys go to ponzirelief.org.
Wait. Hold on. I forgot to tell you this earlier, but will you put the contact? You're going to say it now, say it. But will you type in the contact information in the private in the private chat? I'll copy and paste that over because what happens, you know what happens. There's goddamn, after 2 hours, there's still 161 people on, but several hundred, 300-400, and then next week there'll be another 100, and then inevitably, God, I'm battling with that word. Inevitably, there's a question, 2, 3, 4 questions. How do I find that out? That's why I want that information there, because you're the expert, and I'm learning about this, and it's awesome. But I that way I could just push them through.
Yeah, dude. I just put it in the chat, so I appreciate.
Perfect.
And that's for us really. This year, I have one laser beam focus, and that is Save Form 4684. It's helping so many people being able to write off 95% of the amount of money they lost in this Ponzi financial crime. And it expires in this year, and we got to get our administration, we got to get our boy to just stroke a pen. We got to keep it. We got to help these people. We've helped so many people, and honestly, you'll even see at the bottom of it, we partner. So if anybody's been a victim of one of these financial crimes, there's not a whole lot of there's not a whole lot of people that accounting firms that know specifically about this or how to write it off. And so if anybody's been a victim, if you know of anybody's been a victim, we will do their taxes for free, their personal returns. If they have a Form 4684, it's a ministry project, man. Nobody helps them. Nobody even knows about this. I've only talked to one other accounting firm that knows about this. The rest of them are like, oh yeah, I know you can write off $3,000 a year for lost investment. No, that's different. That's if you lost, 20 grand in your Microsoft shares. That's different. This is, I got stolen from. I lost stuff, and so it's beautiful. And I really want to be able to see if we can make a big push, sign the petition. If you guys, it doesn't cost anything, but I'm trying to get 50,000 signatures
refer to it again. I got you up here on the board.
Ponzirelief.org. And that's the site. You'll see the first thing you see is the petition. Then it's a letter to President Trump. And then you'll see pictures of us from last year and that bike. And I'll have new pictures of the current bike right now. I'll have that coming up soon. You guys can get a chance to see it. But yeah, if you guys, and you'll see on Ponzi Relief at the bottom, it says, join the team. And there's a place where, look, if you're like one of those like social media little geniuses and you're like one of those power networkers, yes, like we need you. I need people to help me document this thing. Like, it's like anything that you guys can help. It's just me and my wife, and we all know to do something great requires a great team. And last year, it was last year when Rebecca, because I just thought it was supposed to be a one-time thing, and halfway through, she's like, I figured out the purpose of this ride. It's to plan the rides. And I was like, oh wow, wait, we got to do this again. Oh,
and again,
yeah,
and
dude.
Again,
but
and again,
I tell you something.
Again.
I'm going to tell you something that happens in my body. And this happened last year, and it happens now. And anybody that knows me, you will physically, because we all have energy and we all have a life force around us.
Absolutely.
You will literally see me physically change my energy. It changes. And as I get closer to it, and again, please, women, do not be offended. I'm not saying I know what it feels like to deliver a baby, but I feel like if I did, it would be like that. Like I'm birthing something and my body.
Hold on.
Ready for it.
Hold on. I gotta make a joke here. The women may or may not have been offended, but I bet you a bunch of trans women have really said, see, I told you.
I
No,
apologize.
no.
I hate
I
offending
couldn't
anybody.
resist that. I
God loves
could
us
not
all,
resist
right?
that.
So, you know,
Absolutely.
but but
Sorry.
it's like that, and my body starts changing. And
Yeah.
that's what's so cool about it is once I get in, I don't get sick. And my energy starts. And so talking about the question was asked earlier about how do you turn your brain off? It's torment. I mean, my Fitbit will tell you last night I got 5.5 hours of sleep, and that's my norm. And so I don't sleep a lot. I maybe get about an hour a night of REM sleep. And but I've been like this for so many years but when I get closer to this, my
Trump's the
body
same way.
starts physically changing and getting ready for what's about to happen. So
Yeah.
I feel I'm given supernatural energy because I start as soon as I wake up, and I'm an early riser. And then literally, like tonight, my last call is at 7. And I'll have a 2-hour treadmill session in between there. And it's like the weird thing is God always gives me what I need, like always, you know. And so it's right there. It's exactly what Ronaldo's saying. It's a God-given gift for your mind to never shut down. Yes.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's exactly right. And you would think it's a gift until you're in the brain, and she knows what I'm talking about because
Yes.
it's torture,
Yeah.
and there's nothing. Let me say it this: with ADD, if you do not learn the skill of harnessing your brain, let me say it like this: if you harness it, you have no concept of the power that's within your grasp. Okay. But most people that I know that have it never did it, and they took a pill, and the
Yes.
pill does not teach you how to. So you know the movie Hangover? Okay. I love comedies. Okay.
Yeah.
They wake up in the morning. This dude's missing a tooth. They open the bathroom door, and there's a freaking tiger in the bathroom. Okay. Tyson's tiger is in the bathroom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That, my friends, is freaking ADD. If you saw, okay, and only ADD people are going to get what I'm about to say. There's a very famous video back when Helen Keller was around. Okay, so black and white. Okay, and if you remember, she's walking around the table and she's like grabbing food, and then she gets to Ann Sullivan and she's like, no, and Helen Keller's like, what the hell? Like this shit flips out, bro. No, and so, dude, that is the ADD brain. And most people, okay, that have it do not tame it. But if you tame it, oh my word, you don't even know the power, And so really for this is specifically strategically, let's get the word out. Let's do it as a team. My philosophy has always been if one man can take somebody's money, why can't all of us working together get it back? Why can't we as a team do this? And so for me, it's like, look, I'll do the crazy stuff, bro. Look, that's easy. I'll swim my first mile when I'm 8. I'll do all this. I'll run a marathon. I don't care. I'll do crazy stuff, but that's just biking. That doesn't help these people. That's just a crazy dude, right? What helps these people, what brings awareness, what brings fundraising is you. It's us. We do it together.
Yeah.
You
That's awesome, dude. That is awesome. Well, you've got a bunch of fans that came on. We had over 400 at one
dude.
point.
Shut the front door.
And never, I don't think this long have we had 160 audience members hanging in there. I'm telling you.
Look, what the thing is I just literally have 10,000 hysterical stories, and like, I don't know, man. It's like when you just kind of know and just watch God do all these crazy cool things, and I kind of feel like people like hearing about it. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just tell you another crazy story. I'll just tell you another crazy story, And I don't know, And because of my crazy brain, I think in vivid pictures, so I'm very good at telling you what I see, and so I can articulate that really well. And because whenever I'm talking, I go to a place. Like I was that nerdy dude. Like even though I was really bad in school, but the word was so powerful to me, and it's such a I was sexually abused as a kid. I'd gone through major turmoil and all that stuff as a kid. And so it was weird because Shakespeare or like Moby Dick or Kill a Mockingbird, I know this is weird, but if my brain was so image driven that if I was reading something and it took me somewhere, that's what I wanted to do. Like as a kid, I just love those choose your own adventure books, and Dungeons and Dragons. It was just about the adventure, man. And so I'm able to, I just feel like I can articulate this crazy stuff that I see. And I think people dig it, Plus, I think we're all a part of the same thing. We've kind of all experienced the same type of thing. And I don't know. I just feel like everybody's like, look, let's try to help some freaking Ponzi victims here, man. Like, we got all this crap going on. And you know what? We just basically got a new round of female astronauts. So look, we've already focused on that. Why don't we just help some Ponzi victims now, And I don't know. I think we all kind of want to do the same thing, and we all want to help the little guy, the one that doesn't have a voice.
Awesome, dude. And that's why you're here, because we're on the train with you. Give everybody a big wave, and I'm going to close it out here in a minute.
My pageant wave.
No, you got to go, hey!
I'm like this. What? Peace. That's how I get off of all of the team calls are like, let me guess. I'm like, peace. That's how I get off of everything. So thank you guys for listening to this crazy dude tell crazy stories, awesome. Man. It means the world, awesome. And I appreciate you guys.
Great day. Hang on for a second. I'm going to throw you back in the green room, and then we'll chit chat, stay together. I want to set up something with that Chicago thing. So we'll talk to you in a second.
Come on.
All right. So, yeah, right. I mean, what a freaking experience. I mean, we had Katerina on yesterday, and same thing. There's people that have that drive, and there's people like he just said, what you have to do is you have to control it, because some of the most impressive, I'd say a great number of the most impressive people in the world have that going on. I mean, it's that you go back through history, and here, hold on. Ronaldo said it's a God gift thing. It's God's gift to you, but like you said, God only gives you a little crack to look through in the door. Doesn't open it up all the way. So that brain is able to function at a much higher level and crazy level if you don't control it or manage it. But you become gifted so much more easily because your brain is connected to God and the rest of Earth. So I'm gonna start to wrap this down, and I'm gonna go back and talk to Aaron here in a minute, because we want to set up some. I want to set up something in what would that be? Maybe June-ish. Yeah, maybe June-ish, I think. So when we're going to talk about that, and my name, as you guys all know, is Rod Duff, and I'm here with producer Barbie, who not right here right now, but we're Insights and Straight Talk, and we really appreciate the support, folks. Listen to what Aaron's. This is a great cause, and we're going to get involved, and I'd love everybody here to get involved. Obviously, it's the most. Our work on Earth, our filling of our journey, our filling of our mission is one of not only the most important things we do in life, it's also one of the most rewarding. And, I'm going to leave, like I say, go wave to somebody, say hi to somebody, create your vibe. But other than that, guys, let's keep doing this. But for right now, I'm out.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here, and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.